Can a business have a mind, a subconscious, a power to store every experience and call upon it through something called intuition? Can a company have reflexes, a nervous system, the ability to react precisely and correctly, faster than the speed of thought? Can an enterprise have a sixth sense, a knack for predicting the future? Can a business have a spirit? Can a business have a soul? Can a business be alive?
Competing with champions, always striving for victories, winners choose SAP. In the world of sports, SAP has fought alongside athletes, coaches, and teams worldwide to help achieve their goals in 2014. SAP HANA has brought sports facts and analysis to more than 50 million fans. More insights and new possibilities with SAP help to prepare for future challenges.
Thanks to SAP, we have the possibility to be very individual with the player, to work fast and smart.
We'll have a completely new digitalized world which will be state-of-the-art in our club. And this is the goal SAP is working for with us.
SAP is the perfect match for the WTA.
I'm trying to get as much information as possible from the analysis to perform even better with my next ride.
Before we had the SAP Analytics, you were relying on your feeling. And now you are able to compare with objective data.
With these hundreds of players, what SAP has created, the draft tool powered by SAP, is just phenomenal.
It's quite nice for the fans to get to know the person a little bit different than just hitting a golf ball from A to B.
Since first taking to the ice in 1917, the National Hockey League has seen amazing growth. In 97 years, there have been 7,250 players, 50,000 regular season games, 3,950 playoff games, 310,000 regular season goals, and 2.5 million shots on goal. From the first puck drop, the method of capturing, formatting, and distributing NHL statistics has evolved as much as the game itself.
The stats landscape right now in the NHL is kind of all over the place. One of the goals is to really make sure that all of the tools that fans need are on NHL.com.
With new teams, new markets, new competitors, new media, and new technology, the speed and demands of today's game require the NHL to be more agile, from the back office right down to the ice. The partnership with SAP brings together two best-in-class organizations and uses leading technology to begin building the foundation of the game for the 21st century.
What SAP is going to allow us to do is really tell stories, to let our fans go deeper and deeper into the game.
Fans are super hungry for content with NHL.com/stats. We're going to deliver a level of insight at the player and team level that hasn't been seen in hockey before.
The process for this redesign has really been a true collaboration between the NHL and SAP. It's just an overall updated look and feel. We really want to give the users a clean experience, easy to navigate it, and also give a level of interactivity.
The game is so fast and it's so skilled. What we're working with SAP on is how to basically slow that game down through the use of data, to be able to give us a digital record of everything that happens on the ice.
And with that, there'll be a wealth of new metrics that can then go into, one, the HANA database, and two, the new NHL stats section. Now that they have the authentic data and this great set of tools, what are some new stories and new angles we can tell about the sport of hockey and about the NHL players?
The full archives of NHL stats dating back to 1917 will soon be available to the public for the first time ever.
So that means all of the new tools that we're giving for advanced filtering and visualizations, fans can now then apply that throughout the entire history of the league.
So now you can begin to use that statistical data to compare a Sidney Crosby to a Wayne Gretzky, to a Gordie Howe.
The NHL and SAP will continue to look for new insights and innovations that will improve the game. The next generation of hockey is about to begin.
I've seen what we've already done since this short period. Such great, exciting things are on the horizon.
Ich habe das noch gar nicht so drin in mir, dass das so funktioniert hat, dass wir Weltmeister geworden sind. Das war schon unglaublich.
Für mich war es natürlich der emotionalste Moment, auch schon mit meiner Karriere.
Wenn man heute sich vorstellt, man ist Weltmeister, dann klingt es immer noch so ein bisschen irreal. Fußball, finde ich, hat sich wahnsinnig entwickelt.
Theoretisch ist es sehr simpel, ne? Das ist diese 22 Leute laufen Ball hinterher, aber es gibt ja so viele Kleinigkeiten, die entscheidend dafür sind. Es war unglaublich spannend für mich generell, diesen Prozess von Anfang an mit zu begleiten und mitzuentwickeln.
Ich glaube, dass das ein wichtiges Tool ist und dass man dadurch einfach auch sein eigenes Spiel und auch das Spiel der ganzen Mannschaft irgendwie verbessern kann.
Und das haben wir eigentlich mit beiden Tools super geschafft. Also einmal mit der App, die einfach jedem Spieler auch außerhalb der Länderspielzeiten immer wieder wichtige Informationen gegeben haben, wo auch immer Feedbacks kamen. Und mit dem SAP Match Insights Programm.
Wenn man sich die Bilder auf diesem Pult da angeschaut hat, man konnte die Spielsituation, man konnte es ein bisschen verlangsamen, da waren verschiedene Filter drauf, ob Freistoßaktionen, Abseitsaktionen.
Es war ja das erste Mal so, dass wir es nutzen konnten. Ich denke, dass es ein gutes Hilfsmittel war, zusätzlich eben zu unseren Besprechungen.
Daten können natürlich auch unglaublich viel helfen, wenn sie schnell bereitgestellt werden.
Da habe ich Videos auf mein Handy geschickt bekommen, weil wir eine App auch entwickelt haben mit SAP zusammen und das war ganz einfach gewesen, das konnte ich unproblematisch von meinem Handy aus immer abrufen und teilweise habe ich sogar solche Daten mir auch dann, wenn ein neuer Spieler eingewechselt wurde, in der Halbzeit dann angeschaut.
Es ist toll für die Spieler auch, wenn sie merken, es wird etwas für sie gemacht.
Ich glaube, dass das schon auch ein gutes Hilfsmittel war für uns in der Zeit.
Wenn es dann auch noch ein bisschen cool ist, wenn es dann modern ist, dann ist es natürlich interessanter. Das ist gut, dass man das auch natürlich in verschiedenen Bereichen nachschauen kann, dass man da vielleicht auch Belege für Eindrücke gewinnt.
Und das ist ja jetzt erst der Anfang. Also ich denke, da werden noch so viele Daten kommen, von denen ich noch nichts weiß, die ich mir jetzt auch noch nicht vorstellen kann.
Aber auch der ganze Weg eben, das war schon was Einmaliges.
Das ist immer wieder, wenn ich Bilder sehe, habe ich auch sofort natürlich eine Gänsehaut.
Can a business have a mind, a subconscious, a power to store every experience and call upon it through something called intuition? Can a company have reflexes, a nervous system, the ability to react precisely and correctly, faster than the speed of thought? Can an enterprise have a sixth sense, a knack for predicting the future? Can a business have a spirit? Can a business have a soul? Can a business be alive?
Competing with champions, always striving for victories, winners choose SAP. In the world of sports, SAP has fought alongside athletes, coaches, and teams worldwide to help achieve their goals in 2014. SAP HANA has brought sports facts and analysis to more than 50 million fans. More insights and new possibilities with SAP help to prepare for future challenges.
Thanks to SAP, we have the possibility to be very individual.
Welcome to our live coverage of Kieler Woche, an all-important medal race day. It's the climax of the week so far, with 4 Olympic classes decided in the next few hours. We're at the Olympic Sailing Centre near Kiel in northern Germany, and those are live pictures, and that's the conditions that we are experiencing today. So strong winds and grey skies, but we're hoping to get racing underway at about 11:05 local time. That's about 9:05 GMT, I believe. So in basically 20 minutes from now. So welcome along. Welcome to our studio here on the side of Kiel Bay. Marcus Bauer sitting in the analytics corner, analysing all the data that's coming from the trackers on the boats and on the marks and all the wind data. And he'll be filling us in on that throughout the commentary. So we have laser first, the laser medal race. Then it's the NACRA 17s, the 49ers and the 49er FXs. So we hope that wherever you're watching around the world on the internet or on the Nautical Channel, you can stay with us for the next few hours for some live action and the Olympic class medal races here at Kiel Week. So plenty to look forward to. Just before we look ahead to the first race, let's look back at yesterday's action and how we got to where we are. It was a very mixed bag of weather for day 4 of Kieler Woche. After a long and sunny delay waiting for some breeze to fill in, the 49er FX and NACRA 17 catamarans eventually got out on the water for some late afternoon racing. The FX fleet have been dominated this week by the Dutch boat of Annemiek Beckering and Daniel Bramover, but they met their match today in Leonie Meyer and Elena Stoffers. The Germans took the lead, but the chasing Dutch used the leeward gate to force a split up the final windward leg. When the Dutch and Germans converged, it was neck and neck. But Meyer liked the look of a gust on the left, and at the next cross the Germans had re-established a comfortable lead. One they held to the end. It was a day for overtaking, and the data analytics also highlight the clever move that helped Argentina claim a race victory in the NACRA 17 class. Regatta leaders Paul Koloff and Carolina Werner led from the top of the first windward leg, but at the top of the final windward leg, the Germans fell out of the best breeze and could only watch as the fast-charging Argentinians Nahuel Martinez and Eugenia Bosco surged past in stronger winds from the left-hand side.
We watched the sea, and the clouds were going very fast there, and we saw that the German team was going lighter winds, and we arrived first, so it was great for us.
We saw that Argentinian guy accelerating quite fast, and they kind of got the pressure and were bang on the ley line, and yeah, we decided not to tag back, and which I think in the end was a bad decision.
It was a race-winning move by the South American team, relegating the usually dominant Germans to second at the finish. But it wasn't enough to stop Koloff and Werner sealing the regatta title ahead of the medal race. More overtaking manoeuvres and data from the race courses at sapsailing.com. And so the NACRA 17 competition has been decided. The gold medal has already been sorted out by the German pair. Those are live pictures on the water, and the NACRA 17s, there we go. I just wanted to show you today's newspaper on the front page of the local paper, celebrating that German win in the NACRA 17, which is, of course, the first title to have been decided a day before the medal race. But we do still have a NACRA 17 medal race later on today, and there is still plenty at stake because every one of those podium places can still be won. It's the lasers up first, though, but in general terms, you know, for the sailors who are here and the fleets out on the water, this really means a lot to them.
Oh, definitely. I mean, medal race day is the big day for everyone here. There's, I think, 8 medal races in all. We're covering 4 of them. Very challenging conditions out there today. There's prize money at stake. We'll talk about that a little later. So everyone wants to try to make it on the podium. Top 3 boats get prize money, and yeah, I'm looking forward to some very exciting racing in difficult conditions.
And we should explain that Kiel Week, if you haven't been watching it over the last few days, Kiel Week is kind of divided into 2, really. We have the first part of the week, and in fact, it's called Kieler Woche, but it's actually about 10 days long. And the first part of those 10 days are the Olympic classes. And then starting tomorrow is what they call the international classes, which is very much a Corinthian event. So today is the, I suppose, the pinnacle of the competition.
Absolutely, and we had some really good fleets in some of the classes. Some classes weren't that many boats. In the 49FX we only had 9 boats, which is a bit unusual. It's because it was Kieler Woche this year around was very close to the World Cup in Weymouth, but some other classes saw lots of boats. The Laser, for example, quite a strong fleet there, despite the Worlds being very close to Kieler Woche afterwards. Definitely good sailing today, and exciting competitions ahead.
Yeah, we're missing some of the big names, but certainly within the German fleet, I think they put out the Sailing Team Germany have put out a fairly strong representation here.
Yeah, I mean, for Kieler Woche, for Sailing Team Germany, is a must-go event. They go here every year. The sponsors of Sailing Team Germany are Audi and SAP, and they're well presented at the Kieler Woche, so that's a must-go event for them. So the top German elite is here, and some really good international sailors as well.
I see you have the weather forecast in front of you there. It's looking quite strong. Yesterday, racing was delayed by several hours because of light winds. The forecast was for stronger winds today. It's almost looking too strong.
Yeah, it could be on the edge of being too strong. Looking out on the race course, it looks really strong. It could be gusting up to 30 knots. It could be gusting up to 30 knots, and that would be borderline for some classes like the NACRA and the FX. But we'll see. We'll talk to the weatherman later, I believe. The forecast is definitely saying that we will get some action out there on the water. It looks windy and grey now.
Okay, well, first up on this course are the Laser. And we can see how those stand with Tobias Schadewald of Germany sitting proud up at the top of that leaderboard. The Dane, Michael Hansen, in second place. And then it's the French Mathis Nord in third. So those are our top 10 after qualifying. only 3 sailors now, if you do the maths, can catch leader Tobias Schadewald. It's double points on the medal race, as is the standard format, which means the most that Tobias could score is 20 points. So trust us, we've done the maths. There are just Hansen, Nord and Silvera who can now catch him.
And what an international fleet. 7 nations I counted in the top 10. And now we're on board with Tobias Schadewald. And we can see it's dark and gloomy out there.
And you know, about 1 hour and 20 minutes ago, he drove into the car park right alongside us, and we were chatting, and then we suddenly realised that he was only about an hour away from having to set off. So he's confident, he's fairly calm, cool and collected. But he's been here before, you know. He's been Kieler Woche champion twice before in the 49er. So with his experience and his position on the leaderboard, it's fair enough that he's feeling so confident today.
He's definitely cool out there with just 14 degrees out on the water. It's really fresh today, probably the coldest day we had so far. But he had his warm jacket on still. He's going to throw that off as the race gets on.
So let's have a look at the laser. Talk us through the main features that is going to bring us the action. What are the things to look out for, Marcus?
Well, the laser being an Olympic class, of course, one of the most popular and widest spread boats in the world. Very simple boat, 4 meters 23 long, fairly narrow dinghy with 1 meter and 37, and a fairly small one design sail area of roughly 7 square meters. It is a very traditional boat. I don't know exactly when it was designed, but it's probably got 40 years on its back already easily. But it's one of the most challenging boats to sail in the Olympic arena. Not so much for the boat handling technique, but definitely for the strategy and tactics, for the physical strength, and for the level of competition you find in that class. It is one of the toughest medals to win.
And of course, it's a boat that many young sailors know, because after the Optimist, you move into the laser quite often.
Yeah, it's there is different sorts of lasers. There's a laser 3.7 with a smaller sail area, which is easier to get into after the Optimist when the kits are still shorter and lighter, and then they grow into the laser classic, if you like, and that's where the going gets really tough, and you gotta be especially fit when it comes to your core fitness and your leg strength, because you're hiking during the whole race and you're balancing the boat all the time, especially in strong wind conditions like this.
Yep, definitely a progression through the different laser ranks for young sailors with Olympic dreams. Looking a little bit choppy, quite breezy out there on Kiel Bay as the big ships come out of the port and head off across the Baltic. What do you think these conditions will mean as far as race tactics are concerned?
Well, what makes it special today is that it's going to be very, very gusty. There's big clouds moving over the course. We can see them looking out the studio now. And also, something that you rarely get, the water surface is a little bit warmer than the air, and that means we've got rising air over the water, and that makes it even more turbulent and more gusty. So really looking out for the gusts, it's going to be the strategic game, and obviously you need to go fast, and Toby Schadewald is known to be fast in these sort of conditions, despite being a little bit short. I think we're going to see a nice speed battle and intricate tactics and strategies by the sailors.
Well, he's short, but he's stocky. He's all muscle.
Very strong.
And he will be the man to beat out there this afternoon. Let's hear from him now. He's speaking to our reporter.
Toby Schadewald on top of the leaderboard of the laser class. You could be quite happy.
I'm very happy indeed. I had a great week. Good speed on the upwinds especially, and that resulted in very consistent results here.
So how do you deal with those sometimes strange conditions here, wind, light wind, etc., etc.?
Well, I think you have to take it one step at a time, but it also helps if you have sailed here for many years, and that experience gave me some more calmness in my head to make good strategic choices.
Is it the experience and that sailing on home soil?
Well, yeah, that's part of it, and the other half is if you get it a little bit faster than everybody else, then it becomes so much easier.
So today you will have another rock show out on the water. Who's going to be the champion in the end?
We will see that, but I'll do everything I can to make sure I will be on top at the end.
All right, best of luck, and back to Alec.
Now, plenty of rock shows happening in the centre of Kiel as well, but more on that later. We're joined by Mino Schrader, the Kiel Week weatherman. And Mino, we've been speculating as to how it's looking out there, but give us the facts.
I think it's looking perfect already now. So the breeze is coming up. There will be still more I'm waiting for, and we get a really nice breeze, a good choppy wave. So all the conditions with heavy gusts, which makes, I think, spectacular sailing on all the courses.
Yeah, choppy conditions, meaning the heavier,
short
the better
waves,
for the
short, steep waves, difficult to sail for, especially for the skiffs later on, because they tend to pitch pole.
And how does the laser operate in those conditions?
It copes really well with it, and the laser is probably the class that can handle the most wind out of the medal races we're going to cover today. So I'm wondering, will it be too strong possibly for the FX later on, or do you expect the wind to settle in below 25 knots?
So in average or in gusting? I think in average it has to be less than 25.
Yes.
So from this point of view, because they go on the inner shore courses, we have chances, or they have chances to go, not too much breeze, so in the range 17 to 20 in average, but gusting into the 27, and on India 27, so hotel golf, sorry, I have to sort out, closing short 27, maybe shortly 30 knots, very single ones, but on India I expect earlier 30, 32 knots in gusting.
India being the outside course, whereas hotel is the TV course.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And we still have the Alpha course far outside, so they really see 36 knots in gusting, so tough condition there.
Our concern is the hotel course, which is the one with the TV cameras on, and that's quite close into the bay, so it's looking okay. You've pretty much been absolutely 100% accurate all week so far, Mino. You're shaking your head, but let's just gloss over any, because no one knows any
I thought it was pretty good.
No one knows any better than you do. So, but we've seen a real variety of weather in one day, every day. Are we sure that we're not suddenly going to, things are not suddenly going to change?
But we just saw really nice the increase of the breeze as further out we are. So you saw really the edge where the sea state become much higher and the breeze much stronger.
Okay, Mino, thanks very much. We'll let you get back to your number crunching, and we will focus on the race that is about to begin. We've had a little glimpse of the start line. Everything is set. What's the course?
The course is starting upwind, of course, as always in Olympic sailing, going up to the windward mark, down to a leeward gate, back up to the windward mark, and down, final dash to the finish. And also an update on the breeze at the moment. At the start line, we have around 16 knots of wind, which is perfect conditions, not too breezy at all at the moment. We'll follow up on that, and it's 3 minutes to go to the start.
3 minutes to the start then for the medal race in the men's laser here at Kiel Week, as our leader Tobias Schadewald of Germany has taken his jacket off to reveal the leader's yellow jersey. He is now going into pre-start mode. One last word with his coach, and now in the next couple of minutes we will see the fleet form up on the line, and they will be jostling for the side of the line, the position, the particular position on the start line that they want, that they think will power them away faster than anybody else. And we have, as I've said, the data coming off the boat, but also wind data coming in, and I'm wondering if Marcus now has an opinion based on the numbers. Well, which side of the line is best?
There's a wind device on the starting vessel. We can't see it. It's on the other side of the starting vessel that we're currently looking at. And just a few seconds ago, the data it gave me had a slight bias to the left. This is, by the way, an amazingly short starting line, maybe unusually short. It's going to be quite congested, despite the fact that it's only 10 boats on the course. I saw a slight bias to the left, but the line is so short that it shouldn't matter as much as getting clean out of the start.
So time will tell which side is best. Not a strong opinion based on the numbers that we're getting. This is our leader with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go to the start. And there you get a really good idea of the chop that our weatherman Mino was talking about, whipped up by the breeze, the winds and the dark clouds over on the horizon there, those storm clouds that every now and again, in fact yesterday they forced the fleets off the water for safety reasons, and the race officials and the weather forecasters proved correct yesterday, because we did get a really heavy squall come in. But the boats were off, everyone was safe, and we now 40 seconds from the start of the men's laser medal race here.
Boats bunching up at the start end, at the end of the starting vessel. Toby Schadewald in the middle of all the boats.
So the sail number to look out for Tobias Schadewald is Germany 207457 with 20 seconds to go. He is the leader, and Schadewald has to finish in the top 5 to be sure of the title. Michael Hansen of Denmark is the man who is trying to close the gap on him, and then come 3 other boats from France and Portugal and Poland, all in with a chance as the racing gets underway. The first race, medal race of Kieler Woche, gets underway, and it's a clean start, and the fleet heads up to the first mark.
And Tobias Schadewald started on the right-hand side of the line, whereas Michael Hansen was the second boat down at the start. It was a clean start, no individual or general recall, and we can see Tobias Schadewald getting out of the start quite cleanly.
On the left of the screen then, the third placed boat from France, Mathis No.
But there was a bias to the left. We see the boats on the left-hand side in our mini graphic at the bottom. They're slightly ahead. There's not much in it for them, just a few meters. But Tobias Schadewald, who started on the right, is now picking up pace, climbing into the top 3.
Eduardo Marques of Portugal on the right of the fleet, as we're seeing, just behind our mini-map there. He is leading this race, currently down in 9th on the leaderboard, so not a challenger for a medal place. Sandro Lacan of France in 2nd place, and then our overall leader, Tobias Schadewald, is in 3rd. And what we're seeing is that 3rd and 4th, those are the 2 leading boats in the leaderboard overall. So they're the ones we're keeping an eye on right now. But still very much bunched together. And it's going to be some while before we see a separation, a gap develop in the fleet.
Yeah, and 7 boats heading out to the left-hand side of the course. That's the boat sailing towards us now here. And 3 boats heading out to the right side. That's the Polish boat, David Kania, and 2 other boats, but the majority are deciding that the left-hand side is favorable.
But the race leader is from Portugal. He's on the right of the shot, with France 8725. Tacking away, Sandro Lacan of France in 2nd place.
Breeze still around 17 knots out there,
which is the strongest we've seen actually all week.
Yes, it is, and it's going to only get stronger over as the day gets on. Tobias Schadewald converging towards the middle of the course, where roughly 1/3 up the beat.
Wind direction flowing in the bottom right of this graphic.
David Kania on the right-hand side has benefited from a slight right-hand shift. Not a whole lot in it at the moment, just 9-meter lead for him. Tobias Schadewald has tacked back. And now we're on board with him, and we can see him work the boat, shaking his head. We don't know why. And you can see how hard they have to hike there.
It's constant activity, constant energy burn on that boat. And you get an idea now of where the leader is.
That's David Kania in the background, and Tobias Schadewald in the foreground, currently lying in fifth place.
The Polish boat there is actually Jakub Masiniak, who's down the fleet right now.
And
a good Polish representation with 3 boats in this medals race.
And it looks like the wind has swung to the left. The French boat looks like it could potentially pass in front, and that could mean a position change quite soon. Majority of the fleet still leaning towards the left-hand side of the course.
And I can just talk you through the mini-map there on the bottom right corner. We're calling it our mini-map. Think of those grey lines as a wind ladder. The higher up the ladder, the better placed the boat is. The grey lines always stay at 90 degrees to the wind, which is why you can see them moving on the screen every now and again, reflecting how the wind is shifting. And it also gives you an idea of the bias there was on the start line, which is that line between the 2 white dots at the bottom.
So the last thing you can see from that map is that it's not a symmetric course. It's skewed a little bit to the left. That can happen. It's not always easy to lay an even course, but it defines a playground as slightly skewed because the mark has been laid a little too far to the left.
David Kania pulling away now from the majority of the fleet. His Polish teammate staying up close and personal, side by side. Then comes the Swiss sailor Christoph Bottoni, who started the day in 6th place and is out of a chance for the medals.
Now, the beauty about the SAP Sailing Analytics is that they give us live results and live overall leaderboards at any time during the race. So it's interesting to look at the point scores which have evolved from the leaderboard that we saw before the race. And I can report that Michael Hansen is, as he's going up and down on the leaderboard, he's becoming really close in points with Tadeusz Kubiak. So there's a battle going on between Michael Hansen and Tadeusz Kubiak, and also between Tadeusz Kubiak and Matthias Naut, who are tied on points with roughly 33 points. Scores are changing all the time, but there is a fierce battle going on for 2nd and 3rd place in contention at the moment. Michael Hansen, Tadeusz Kubiak and Matthias Naut. And Tobi Schadewald has dropped back to 7th place at the moment, which actually would put him in 2nd position overall. So a lot can happen in this race. We're only 2/3 up the first beat.
As far as the gold medal is concerned, the one thing to look out for is whether Schadewald is in the top 5. If he makes it into the top 5, he has sealed gold, and then the battle will remain for 2nd and 3rd.
And this is not a night shot. It is the weather in Kiel, which we all enjoy so much, and which is a great test for any sailor.
And the irony is it's actually darker at the moment than it was at 10:30 last night. It never seems to get dark.
It's almost midsummer.
It is almost midsummer, yeah. Although you wouldn't know it looking at Tobias Schadewald with his woolly hat on and his wetsuit and all the various layers that he'll be wearing underneath to keep him warm.
It's been an awfully cold summer so far.
Water temperature around 15 degrees. That's splashing up on them the whole time. And air temperature, well, we'll be lucky to make about 16 today.
Here the windward mark comes into picture. Majority of the fleet still leaning slightly to the left, but the leaders are on the right, closing in onto the ley line. And at the moment in the lead is Tadeusz Kubiak.
And his Polish teammate is right beside him as they come in to the windward mark. And there you can see how those two Polish boats are side by side as the French come in and the fleet crosses each other. There'll be attack from the French.
Michael Hansen has dropped back, so Tobias Schadewald overall back in the lead. But let's look at that mark rounding first.
So it's the lesser placed boat from France that rounds the mark first and heads off downwind. Sandro Lacan leading this race right now at the first mark. Then come the Poles, side by side again almost. The Swiss, the Dane. But where is our overall leader, Tobias Schadewald?
He's currently lying in 8th place, I believe, and that is still just good enough for first place because Michael Hansen is also down fleet.
And now we see a very different motion in the boat as they go downwind. Oh, this is Schadewald going round, a replay of that, ahead of Frenchman Mathis Nou, who is challenging him for the gold medal.
And you're totally right now, it's not so much about hiking, it's more about balancing and steering the boat through the waves and making it plane as much as possible, making it take off, lift out of the water. And you can see the speed differences of the planing boat in the background going much faster than the boat in the foreground.
And it's the same principle as trying to skim a stone across the surface of the water.
Exactly, and I like to compare it with water skiing. You need to be lifted out onto the water, and then you can go much, much faster. And that's what they're working for here all the time, by pumping the sail, by moving their bodies, by steering the boat into favorable angles to the waves to make them go as fast as possible downwind.
And what we're watching there is the battle for third with Kubiak as the camera pans over to France 8-7-2-5. Sandro Lacan.
All boats in the middle of the course going almost dead downwind, not much jibing going on.
And here we go from the graphic, a nice view of the leader and the 16 metres that separates him from the first of two Polish boats, Dawid Kania and Tadeusz Kubiak.
Tobias Schadewald and Michael Hansen having a battle in the back of the fleet. I think Tobias Schadewald is staying really close. He knows he just has to be a couple of places behind Michael Hansen, and he'll maybe try to slow him down a bit to not... currently in the overall leaderboard there's only 5 points between the two. Schadewald has 24 points, Michael Hansen 29. So he'll just try to stay close to Hansen to seal the win. And in third place, Tadeusz Kubiak, currently lying safely in the bronze medal position, and €1,000 of prize money for third place. 2,000 for the second one and €3,000 for the winner.
But at the moment it's France, followed by Portugal, or even Poland, and then Portugal. And what's he doing here? What that rocking at the back of the boat?
He's balancing the boat. He's heeling the boat to make it go to windward and leeward without having to steer the boat with the rudder, which slows it down a bit. So he's basically steering through heeling the boat, and he's doing that in a way that he takes the waves in more favorable angles. And that was the mark rounding around the leeward mark.
We'll just get our bearings as we go back to our live onboard pictures.
He actually climbed, Tobias Schadewald climbed to 6th place, getting in a more secure position for his overall win.
Well, that rounding of the mark worked for him because he's now up to 4th and closing in on the leaders. In fact, the top 5 are all pretty close. There's only 10 metres that's separating them at the moment, so plenty of lead changes likely on this leg upwind.
And after the mark rounding, after the leeward gate, Tobias Schadewald has tacked into the middle, and we see Denmark tacking now, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see Tobias Schadewald tacking as well in just a few seconds, because he wants to stay close to Michael Hansen. That's all he needs to do to secure the win. And now Schadewald is even up to 3rd place. He was in 2nd place.
Mathis No nearest to us with the French boat just the other side of him. Portugal's Rui Silveira in 5th. So these two boats just jostling now for 3rd and 4th place.
I'm a little surprised that Schadewald lets Hansen go. Hansen sailing in the middle of the course, whilst Tobias Schadewald is crossing over to the right-hand side of the course, opening quite a gap, a horizontal gap on the course to Michael Hansen, number 6, that we see in the middle of the course, and Tobias Schadewald is heading out to the right. That's putting some risk, putting him into some risk if a major shift would come in. Michael Hansen now has to tack. He probably got headed and has to go to the right-hand side as well.
But there are some interesting tactics developing on this race.
Well, the cool thing about the laser is that taking a tack hardly costs you anything. You don't lose much by doing a tack. The stronger the wind gets, the more you lose, but it's very affordable to do a tack, and that means they're taking advantage of very small wind shifts already. So you see a lot of tacking going on in the laser. We will see a lot less in the classes we follow for the rest of the day. In a catamaran, in the Nakra, it's very expensive to tack, but in the laser, the boats are very flexible, very movable. And
so it'll be interesting to compare the data between those classes at some stage, because we've spent most of the week looking at the number of manoeuvres and finding that those who manoeuvre most are generally further back in the fleet, but that's not necessarily so with the laser.
We'll check out the data after this race. Tobias Schadewald has tacked back, and the right-hand side has proved to be beneficial. He seemed to have the right knack on the wind, and he probably saw something on the right-hand side, and we can see that he put himself in 2nd position. There's 3 boats battling out at the moment for this race, and Michael Hansen has dropped back. The middle wasn't that good, and all the boats now in the middle of the course. Tobias Schadewald, not a lot of freedom to tack right there. We can see the jury in the back, by the way, and the laser is known for penalties by the jury because there's a limit on how much bodywork you're allowed to put into the boat and you're allowed to do, and sometimes the judges come in and flag the boats, and then that means if it's your first penalty, you have to do a penalty turn.
So they keep a close eye on the competitors.
Absolutely. Like the referees in football, you can also get penalized in sailing.
And some of this jury have come from all over the world. Some of them are paid, some of them are volunteers, all of them here for the love of the sport.
Again, the course slightly skewed to the left. We can see that in the mini-map in the bottom, and Tobias Schadewald now took the lead in the middle of the course.
Now the question is, he's in the lead. Can he turn that into a dominant lead and keep the rest of the fleet at some distance, or will we see another lead change?
We could look at the current speeds of the boat to see whether he has a speed edge on the rest of the fleet. This is the current speeds over ground, and there's a slight tendency maybe that he has a speed edge. Good news for him, and that's probably how he climbed up the rank, apart from the right-hand side paying off compared to Michael Hansen, who was in the middle. Now, I definitely sense a speed advantage on Tobias Schadewald. Quite impressive one, too. He's cracking the 6 knots. Sometimes we don't see that happening on the other boats.
But Kubiak, the pole in second place, also going well, also looking fast as he's moving up the leaderboard and is currently in a podium position, as is Michael Hansen, who's just moved into 5th. So silver and bronze still very much up for grabs, and you've got to fancy Schadewald's chances now as he sits at the front of the fleet and only needs to finish in the top 5 to claim the title. There's our leader, making his way for the second time to the windward mark. But still so close with the rest of the fleet. It's hard work, isn't it? It looks such hard work upwind.
Very hard work. I mean, it's if you would look at the heart rate monitor, there are probably up to 160, 170 heart rate beats per minute, and it is awfully hard work. It looks easy, but it certainly isn't. Back on board. Just looking around, looking for the ley line. Doesn't want to hit the ley line too early. He's going underneath the ley line just in case another right-hand shift would hit. The ley line would swing down on him, and he doesn't want to cover that extra ground. Spectacular the distance he has generated, mostly through speed, I'd say.
So the windward mark on the left there of the screen, as all the boats, camera boats and coaches and jury wait for them to reach that mark and turn and head downwind. And that gives us a good idea, a very good aerial view of where everybody is sitting right now, with Schadewald sitting at the front, followed closely by the Pole, Kubiak, and then comes the Portuguese boat. So the first 2 boats now. Online to head for that windward mark. And round the leader goes. Nice and clean. And then you can almost see him power away as the sail catches the wind once more. And the movement of the boat completely different on this leg from the one that we were seeing on the upwind leg. And the mini-map showing that second has now gone round, as has third. But the distance between them is growing. Schadewald is increasing that distance now, 30 metres between him and the pole. But equally, the distance between second and third is growing.
And it looks like there's fairly big gaps at the moment between second and third place. Well, 4 points actually. Tadeusz Kubiak in second place, but it's not good enough for him to win the silver medal. He's actually in third place overall, and fourth place is Rui Silveira with 42 points. I don't think there's any chance he can catch up, and Michael Hansen pretty safely in second place with his 6th place position
so just
at the moment.
Half of the final leg left, with Schadewald leading, as he has done for much of this regatta. 4 wins already, 4 victories in the qualifying regatta. In fact, he's not been out of a podium place since this week started. He has very much led from the front and been dominant. And that will have had an effect on the rest of the fleet going into this, knowing that he's been so strong and so dominant.
He's been very dominant, and we can see why after watching this most of this medal race, because he has the ability to climb up through the fleet without the perfect start. He can still make his way through into the lead, and that's probably what he has done all throughout the weekend. It looks like a very well deserved win for him, and it's going to give him a lot of confidence for the regattas to come.
But an excellent race by Tadeusz Kubiak of Poland, who started the day in 5th and looking unlikely for a place on the podium. But as things stand, he may just sneak a medal.
It's looking good for him at the moment with 33 points, actually 10 points ahead of Mathis Naut from France. So he'll be very happy jumping onto the podium and getting those 1,000 euros for the 3rd place. Tobi Schadewald was the Olympic representative for Germany in the 49er class last time around, after he changed from the laser to the 49er, and after the Olympics he decided to change back. And that's quite impressive, because these boats are really totally different breeds and really different sports almost, and he excels in both of them.
Which is his favorite, do you think?
Well, I think when it comes to the fun of sailing it, he loves the 49er. But when it comes to the athletic challenges and the tactical play, he likes the laser. And yeah, it's so impressive that he's so good at both. Unfortunately, in the laser at the moment, he's got his master in Germany, and that's Philipp Bull, who is now competing on international top level, top 3 at World Cups. He won 2 World Cups already this year. So that's what he's up against for the Olympic qualification.
And of course, the 49er a 2-man boat. This just a single boat, so it takes a very different psychological setup as well as a technical and athletic setup. But here we have the finish line. The committee boat watches as Tobias Schadewald of Germany crosses the line to claim his 3rd title of Kieler Woche, 2 times Kieler Woche champion in the 49er, and he may now claim to be the only man to have won titles here in 2 classes. He is champion in the men's laser. Tadeusz Kubiak, a great run from him as well, an excellent performance. We'll have to wait for the numbers to be crunched and become official, but right now, as he's crossed the line in 2nd place, it looks like Kubiak will have taken the bronze. Eduardo Marques 3rd in this race for Portugal. And Tobias celebrates, punches the air, and wears the yellow jersey that he's worn for so much of this regatta, the leader's jersey, and to that he can now add a trophy and a medal and a cheque as well for 3,000 euros. Well, we look forward to hearing from him and his reaction. He was confident this morning, and rightly so. He had to have a top 5 finish to seal the win. He did, well, he did what he's been doing throughout the week and finished 1st, dominated the fleet and really let them know who was in charge. Catching his breath.
Looks very happy.
And it doesn't matter how many, Olympic medals you've won and how many Kieler Woches you can claim to your name. It's always good to win, isn't it? And you can see that in his face. You could see that in his celebrations.
And I love the saying, you're only as good as your last regatta, because in sailing you always have to prove yourself again. It's all about relative performance against your opponents. And great job done by Tobias this week here. Excellent performance. He's very happy. We talked to him during the week, and he said he really wants to win. He knows it's not a World Cup fleet here, but that makes him want to win even more.
Now, my provisional results, and I emphasise they're provisional, tell me that Schadewald won the overall title, but Michael Hansen did enough to hold on to second place. And Tadeusz Kubiak, the Pole, who started in 5th, did extremely well, raced a fantastic race, came in 2nd and moved up the leaderboard to take bronze and snatch it away from the Portuguese Rui Silveira, who was all lined up for that.
So time for a little analysis of what has happened out there. It was a very short line that surprises me, had a slight bias to the right-hand side. That means the left-hand side started really well. The dark line we're approaching now in the upper speed graph is the start, bang, the start goes, and everyone crosses the line really quickly. Good start on Tobias Schadewald. We can see that he came away really clean, and also a good start on Tadeusz Kubiak. So looking from here, the start was better than what I initially thought. In the after start period, he dropped down to 5th. I don't think he was so lucky on the right-hand side of that upwind, but he managed to climb back due to good speed. And absolutely, the data tells us he is a well-deserved winner due to better boat work, probably, better boat handling, and better speed than the rest.
And it's interesting because that data really puts flesh on the bones of the sailor's instinct, in as much as they kind of know from experience what they're doing and that they're doing it right. But when they come back on shore, they can have a look at those numbers, and their coaches can. And it's there in black and white. Well, let's hear from our winner. Let's hear from Kieler Woche's laser champion. Tobias, this is Alec in the studio. I think you can hear me. Congratulations. So tell us about that race. You had to battle hard to get in the lead at first.
Yeah, at first I tried to shadow the Danish guy. He was in 2nd, so I wanted to stay close to him. But somehow I lost a little bit of my own rhythm, and therefore I think I wasn't too good at the top mark. I think maybe around mid-pack. And then I decided to just go on my own and trust my speed. And 2nd, I went really well, and I was able to catch up the speed and win the race.
We will look at your, hello Toby, this is Marcus. We will look at your speed data in a second, but what was your gut feeling? Were you faster than the rest on the upwind or downwind?
I think downwind I didn't really get it. I was, I think, same speed as the others, roughly. It was sort of tricky with the waves, but on upwind I was able to go pretty fast. I don't think I was going higher, but I hiked very hard and tried to accelerate the boat, and I think that worked fine.
And conditions-wise, I'm just thinking for the medal races still to come, how's it looking out there?
I think it's pretty windy, so you gotta look for your boat handling. Don't make any silly mistakes. And then the wind is always shifting back and forth, so I think there is no side really favored. And then I guess you should tack on the shift straight away.
So last question, Toby. You sailed in the 49er, you sailed in the laser, you won in the 49er, you won in the laser. Which is more fun?
Winning is most fun. It doesn't really matter which class.
Congratulations.
But I definitely enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
That's a perfect answer. Thanks very much, and enjoy the celebrations back on shore. So interesting to get his view, and it kind of backed up what you've been saying from the data.
Well, we haven't looked at the full speed and analytics data, which we will in a minute, to see if we can confirm his gut feeling.
But most importantly, let's confirm the other podium places. As my rough maths told us, Michael Hansen is indeed 2nd, and Tadeusz Kubiak raced a wonderful race this time to move up into 3rd place and just nip Rui Silveira for 3rd place.
And a wonderful international fleet we see here. It was a great competition. I think there were almost 80 boats in the fleet. And the winner is Tobias Schadewald.
So we have about 20 minutes, or sorry, about 12 minutes until the start of the next medal race, which should be the NACRA 17s. They will be heading out towards the racecourse very soon. As I look out of the studio window, I can't spot them yet, but they'll be out there somewhere. So it's a good chance for us to look back at the race that's just been.
So let's look at the speed data, and yes, here we can see how the gut feeling of Tobias Schadewald pan out in the data. Almost 0.3 knots. That's almost 10% more speed on Tobias Schadewald. This is on average on upwind and downwind. We heard him say that on the downwind he didn't really have an edge, so probably on the upwind it was more dramatic than this data shows. Tadeusz Kubiak, not very fast amongst the top 5, so he must have sailed less distance. Let's look at the distance graph. Yes, he had the lowest distance in second place. Tobias Schadewald, maybe, actually he had the longest distance out of all of them. That means he did some extra moves. He could have generated that on the downwind as well by sailing extra snake trails, if you like. But that didn't hurt his overall performance. And I think maneuver-wise, he didn't do that many maneuvers compared to the rest. It was 30. They count quite high in the lasers because there is so many jibes potentially on the downwind, but no clear correlation here. You can see it's very much a mix of speed, strategy, and tactics. There's no clear correlation between maneuverability, distance, and speed, but I think on Tobias Schadewald, the edge he had this week was just a bit more upwind speed.
Which is interesting because the other classes that we're going to be watching today, one of the real pluses in their performance is how few manoeuvres they have done. But that's, as we've said, not the case in the laser. So all in all, your highlight for that race, what have you learned about the course and what we can expect still to come in the next 3 medal races?
The wind wasn't quite as strong as I expected. We're around 15 to 17 knots now. As the wind goes up, we're going to see more dramatic racing in the Nacra. I'm afraid we will see capsizes today. We will see some crash and burn racing. It is getting challenging out there because it's for sure going to pick up. But I was worried actually that it would be too strong to race at all. That's not the case. I'm very, very happy about that, and we will have some fun watching these races to come.
It is actually good news because the 49er and the FX sailors, you know, they're in it for the speed. That's what they love. And we've seen a slightly strange regatta for them because the winds have been so light, and they've all been, you know, praying for stronger winds so they can go out there and really perform as they like to perform. So maybe today we will finally see them do what it is they like to do and what they do best.
Yeah, and a regatta has more than one race because you want to get a mix of conditions and you want to give the sailors more chances to show what they're good at. And it's great that we have this medal race day with different conditions than what we had before. It makes it a more round, more complete test for the sailors. And yeah, I'm really happy we get a finish like that.
And this time between races, used by the fans on shore to visit the food market here and visit the hospitality lounges where there's some pretty amazing food being served up. And I tell you what, we're going to have a break, but we're not going to go to any hospitality lounge because we're not going to be gone for very long. So stay with us. We'll be back with the medal race from the NACRA 17 class in just a few minutes.
Can a business have a mind, a subconscious, a power to store every experience and call upon it through something called intuition? Can a company have reflexes, a nervous system, the ability to react precisely and correctly, faster than the speed of thought? Can an enterprise have a sixth sense, a knack for predicting the future? Can a business have a spirit? Can a business have a soul? Can a business be alive?
Competing with champions, always striving for victories, winners choose SAP. In the world of sports, SAP has fought alongside athletes, coaches, and teams worldwide to help achieve their goals in 2014. SAP HANA has brought sports facts and analysis to more than 50 million fans. More insights and new possibilities with SAP help to prepare for future challenges.
Thanks to SAP, we have the possibility to be very individual with the player, to work fast and smart.
We'll have a completely new digitalized world which will be state-of-the-art in our club. And this is the goal SAP is working for with us.
SAP is the perfect match for the WTA.
I'm trying to get as much information as possible from the analysis to perform even better with my next ride.
Before we had the SAP Analytics, you were relying on your feeling. And now you are able to compare with objective data.
With these hundreds of players, what SAP has created, the draft tool powered by SAP, is just phenomenal.
It's quite nice for the fans to get to know the person a little bit different than just hitting a golf ball from A to B.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Kieler Woche and the all-important Medals Day. Wherever you're watching around the world on the internet or on the Nautical Channel, welcome along to Kiel and the Baltic Sea, which is looking grey and windy and blustery, and it's offering us some fine conditions for sailing. We've already got a champion in the laser in our first medal race of the day. Tobias Schadewald has sealed that one. And coming up next is the NACRA 17. We'll look at the leaderboard and tell you the runners and riders in just a moment. But first, let's have a look at the boat.
Right. The NACRA 17 is a mixed class, a mixed catamaran. You have to sail it with a man and a woman.
And generally, the woman is the crew.
More often, yes,
Yeah.
more often than not. 5 meters 25 long, a beam of 2 meters 59, sail area almost up to 40 square meters, and a weight of 132 kilos. The fastest boat in the Olympic arena, and the catamarans being increasingly popular after the America's Cup has provided these spectacular images of these boats and foils in the water that make the boat lift out. The foils on the NACRA don't allow it to fully fly it constantly, but they do give the boat lift and up the performance dramatically, which makes it the fastest boat out there. And today, in the conditions we have, and I'll check the wind speeds
stunning
in a few
But the wind speeds, if the laser, seeing how fast the laser was going, the Nacras are going to be very, very fast indeed. It's going to be a thrilling race.
Dramatic, and the wind speed's up to 20 knots now. I get that from our wind graphs. So yeah, we're in for some action.
Some absolutely stunning, beautiful old ships in Kiel for this sailing festival. They're berthed up in the docks in the centre of the city, and thousands of people visiting the city for the festival, and it's really offers us a fantastic spectacle as they travel through our screen. But right now, this is where things stand in the overall standings of the Nacra 17. The winner is already signed and sealed and delivered by the German partnership of Paul Koloff and Carolina Werner, young sailors who have led from the start in this and have been in the podium places in every single qualifying race, and in fact have only been second in 2 of those races. So they've been really superlative. They've made the front pages of the newspapers. And in second place, though, Francesco Porro and Laura Marimon Giovanetti. They're in with a chance of silver, of course. We'll look at the permutations again, because right now let's hear from one of the Argentinian boats. It's the one in third place, Noel Martinez, who won a race in qualifying yesterday.
Noel Martinez is joining us, third place today. How do you like it so far, the Kiel Week?
Oh, the Kiel Week is great. We have been here, I don't know, maybe for a week, and it's great. All the people here treat us like at home, so we are very, very happy here with the people of the organization, and the shops, and the night also. It's great, it's great. It's a great week. We are very, very happy.
That sounds good. You're only 3 months into Nacra sailing, and you are on place number 3. What does that mean?
That means that we work very hard on our home, but we are new, so we have to learn a lot. We have to learn a lot. So with these winds, we feel very, very fast, but I don't know tomorrow, or I don't know what is gonna be with 25 knots. We feel very, very, very fast with 12 or 15 knots, but I don't know with 20, 25, you know.
So maybe you hop on place number 2?
Oh yes, we're gonna fight for that. Yes, I'm sure about that.
Best of luck. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for all.
Back to you.
So Martina's a little bit concerned about the strong winds today. More on that in a moment, but let's hear from the guy at the top of the pile, the guy who's already sealed the championship, Paul Koloff.
Paul Koloff, congrats. Kieler Woche champion 2015. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels great. We made it just before already the day before the medal race, and we just had a great week. We managed to win 8 out of 11 races now, with another 2 scores on the scoreboard and a 5th as a discard. And yeah, I think it was a standout performance, but as we said before, the conference wasn't the best, and the real top class guys aren't here, and we'll see them at Worlds, and yeah, let's see what happens.
Today another rock show from you two?
Hopefully, yeah. It's windy, and we always aim to win the races, so we'll see.
Okay, then thank you very much, and best of luck for the Worlds. Cheers. Back to you guys, Alec and Marcus.
Ingo Rohrback doing the interview. He does like his rock concerts, does Ingo? And I think given the speed and the conditions, we may well see a rock concert from Paul Koloff today.
Yes, in 1 minute and 40 seconds we're off, and it is windy. It is up to 20 knots. It's dropped a little bit for the start. Looking onto the start line, we see that at the left of the picture, a lot of ribs, a lot of motorboats lying in the transit of the line. We see the 2 orange flags in the left part of the picture. The boats are lining up, bunching up on the right-hand side. I can't see a bias on the right-hand side. It's probably more on the left-hand side, and we could pick out where Kohlhoff is lying. He's up in the upper part of the fleet on the far end, whereas the Argentinians that we just heard of are also up there. So well, I would favor that pin end down here.
Down this end, that's interesting, because they certainly all seem to want to be up at the other end with 48 seconds to go. Will we suddenly see them move this way?
Actually, with the line being that short, being up there 40 seconds before the start could mean that you're down at the pin at the start. I'm not sure if they really want to start there. The wind data I'm getting gives me a slight bias to the left, but certainly not a whole lot, and a very, very short line again in this race, but that's usual. I think that's according to manual. That's the way it should be. It makes it just more challenging.
So the race officials making it challenging with a short line with 10 seconds to go. They'll be powering up very shortly. 6 boats can still claim a podium. The championship, Germany 2-1-1, has already been claimed, but the Argentinians away with another good start. Martinez and Bosco showing their intent and showing that they want to finish this race at the front of the fleet.
I can't see an individual recall on the start, so that was a clean start, and what a great start on the Argentinians. And also on Koloff and Werner, who we can see here in the left of picture. And now really good speed on the Argentinian boat. Koloff and Werner still ahead, but the speed almost a knot more on Martinez and Bosco. They're powering upwind now, heading towards the left-hand side of the course.
And this race is going to be over pretty quickly. 6 legs, they're telling us that they're going to run. But at this speed and with this wind, we're looking at what, 20 minutes?
Yeah, probably that would be the target. Martinez and Bosco not going as high as Koloff and Werner, who are sailing much higher. And we can see the differences in wind speed on the water surface, some dark shadows on in the upper part of the picture there. Nice battle between 2 boats here, probably Koloff, Werner and Martinez Bosco. Kaphengst up there in the mix.
And what we're looking at is the sack, the bag that holds the spinnaker. And as they come round the mark at the top end, you'll see that unfurled, and then you'll see them go even faster downwind.
Again, the course skewed to the left. Fairly narrow course. They're not even in the middle of the course. If you define the middle of the course as the downwind direction of the windward mark, they're just getting there now. So the longer leg is the starboard leg.
And what we were looking at was the 3rd Italian boat in the fleet, Ugolini and Jubilee, out of any chance of winning a podium.
And we can see the speed and height difference on Martinez versus Koloff. Koloff is just going much, much higher. And that is the speed difference that made them win this regatta for sure. And the height difference, speed and height towards the wind, they result in the so-called VMG, velocity made good, and that's the crucial parameter that sailors are after. And the VMG on Koloff and Werner, much, much better than on any other boat, and they're pulling out again. And they didn't have these strong conditions throughout the week, but they seem to excel in them just as well as they did in the other conditions before.
And what we have seen this week is a marked improvement in the Singaporean boat, Liu and Lim. That's Justin and Denise, who train mostly in Barcelona, but they've been to Kiel many, many times sailing and racing in different classes. So they have experience of these waters, and we've seen them improve as the week has gone on. And right now they're sitting in the top 5. With Koloff and Werner, surprise, surprise, sitting at the front of the fleet.
The fleet heading towards the right-hand side of the course now. They've all tacked and they're heading off, and they've tacked below the ley line. They didn't go too far, and it is a speed race, and 2/3 up the beat, Koloff and Werner already 60 meters ahead of the rest of the pack.
Maxim Semenov in 2nd place from Russia had a bit of a disastrous day a couple of days ago when he touched the first mark. He was very unhappy with that performance and with some of his performances generally. So it looks like he's hitting form today if he can hold on to 2nd place.
Koloff well in control of the fleet, covering the middle of the fleet. It's a bit of a training race for him, really. He by the rules, he has to sail this race. It doesn't matter where how he finishes, but as he said, he wants to win. They want to win any race they compete in.
And as they approach that top mark, Kapensk and Kapensk, the father and son team from father and daughter team from Germany, are in third place. Eckhart Kapensk, now in his late 50s, being crewed by his daughter.
And I can report on the overall scores, the Russian boat currently lying in second place, but not much in it for them ahead of the Italian team Porro, Marimon, Giovanetti in third place, and not much in it for them for fourth and fifth. It's awfully close still. A lot can happen.
You're talking about the leaderboard overall there.
I'm talking about the overall leaderboard, yes. That I get from the SAP Sailing Analytics that you can check out as well at sapsailing.com.
So not long to go now as they converge on that top mark. The first boat, the one closest to the mark, are leaders Kolov and Werner, the 19 and 20-year-olds from Germany.
And we can see Carolina Werner wearing a helmet. Wise move. Boats getting faster and faster all the time, and security is becoming an increasing issue.
An addition today because they weren't wearing them yesterday. So out goes their spinnaker. Nicely unfurled. It fills, and then you will see them accelerate away. The boat will rise up as Semenov and Shektinkin come round in second place.
And the battle is on for third place between two Italian boats and the Argentinians that we spoke to before, which are currently lying in fifth overall. What a nice shot of this boat's performance.
You can see just how fast they are, and what sort of, is this the optimum position? What are they looking to achieve?
Well, they're trying to go as deep as possible with the apparent wind. You have to understand that the wind, even though they're sailing away from the wind on board is blowing forward. That's called the apparent wind. And they're trying to go as fast as possible because that actually allows them to go further downwind. So they're looking for the big gusts, they're accelerating their boat, and then they're bearing away and they're sailing deep. Now they've jibed into a gust that we can see left of them. There's a slightly darker patch on the water. They're going to catch that in a few seconds. And they're lonely in the front with a 100-meter lead ahead of the rest of the fleet. Now they're catching that gust and you can see them bearing away in the gust.
Well, this is what we've seen throughout the week in the NACRA 17 with Kolov and Werner out in front. In fact, on the first day, they were never anywhere but in first place. They led off the line in every race and stayed in that position throughout the race. They really were superlative and proving that they are in the stronger winds as well. So really the battle to look out for is for second and third. And at the moment, the Russian Semenov and Shetaninka, doesn't matter how often I practice that name, I'll never get it right, are sitting in second place.
Maybe a vodka helps.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's right. Which I think, if the data that I'm getting is correct, also puts them into the silver medal position ahead of the Italian Sabatini and Mamusa.
Wind is still between 15 and 20 knots, not increasing at the moment. Very decent sailing conditions. No capsizes yet. Looks all fairly safe.
Now, it'd be interesting to see the Kapensk pairing. And as the race goes on, and Eckhart may get more and more tired, we'll see if they drop back, or if his fitness is still up there where it was, 20, 30 years ago.
It is challenging on him, I can tell you that. And by the way, he has built the studio that we're currently sitting in. He's an engineer. He's a very good sailor and an engineer, and we partnered up with him to build this studio and the SAP Sail Cube.
And he's done a very good job of it.
Absolutely.
We'll have to be careful what we say in commentary then. Don't want him hiding any little surprises for us the next time we come in.
In the air conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. So the lead has shrunken up. That's normal because as the boats go upwind, they slow down, and that decreases the lead. It doesn't mean that they haven't performed on the last half of the beat. Boats are heading out to the left-hand side now. And if we zoom out on our mini-map, we will see if the course layout is still as it was, slightly skewed to the left, or whether it has evened out a bit more. Yeah, still a little bit skewed, but it's more even. They're already in the middle of the course now. And Koloff and Werner in the picture here, now in 3D. And we get an overview of the fleet. Again, they're going higher than the rest.
Now in the battle for second place, Semenov and Sabatini began the day in third and fourth place overall, with just 2 points separating them.
And at the moment, the Russian pair is lying in third position, 1 point behind the Italians, Porro and Marimon
Giovanetti.
And in fourth place, it's Sabatini, Mamusa, and our sympathetic Argentinian team, Martinez, Bosco, currently lying in fifth, but only 6 points behind the podium place.
So that's where they stand in the overall leaderboard, but on the screen you're looking at the positions for this race, almost halfway through the race, and the distances between the leader and the rest of the fleet.
And a close-up tack from Kolhoff and Werner. She's really quick back out on the trapeze.
She scampers around that boat, doesn't she, and throws herself out on the trapeze. So athletic, so nimble and quick. But really the Russians being put under a lot of pressure by the two Italian boats for the second place title.
And a replay of that tack in slow motion. And there she goes out again. Not easy to not get tangled up on all these wires, ropes, and the centerboard sticking in the way. And what a great job they did on that tack. Beautiful.
And there's an interesting mix of ages, isn't there, in this NACRA 17 fleet? So you've got, Eckhart in his late 50s, and then you've got the current champion who's 19.
Yeah, the class pulled a lot of experienced sailors who thought they had a chance with this new setup. It's going to be a premiere at the next Olympics to have this class. And it really pulled a diversity of talent out of the global sailing community. And I think that's very good and very unique to have this mixed class in a sport.
So a lot of these sailors looking to head to the Olympics for the first time in a NACRA 17. And the Argentinians, Martinez and Bosco, had high hopes for this regatta. They're currently sitting in fifth overall, but further down into the bottom half of the fleet in this race. There are two sailors that were a little bit discarded really by the Argentinian Olympic team, and they are battling to prove themselves and to prove that they have a right to represent their country in Rio in 2016. So we'll keep an eye on them, see how they finish up, but certainly their performances have been pretty good this week. Martinez and Bosco, they've worked so hard over the last 3 months, which is the only time they've had together to sort out their technique and boat handling in the NACRA 17, and they've put on a good show. But no one has put on as good a show as these two. Our champions, Koloff and Werner, as they come up and round that top mark for the second time. And what a distance, what a lead. You can see in this shot the time difference as well between the leaders and the second place Russian boat that is still some way off rounding that mark. And I don't think we've seen this pair make a mistake at all in the races we've covered.
No, they're surely hiding that, and spectacular lead. Again now, that's the error on the leaderboard at the moment. I don't think it's 384-meter lead, but it is a lead of at least 150 meters.
And what a performance from the other German boat. Eckhard Kapenks and his daughter Tina Marie, currently sitting in second place now, having moved ahead of the Italians. So the battle for second and third, changing all the time, and it's a really fascinating battle.
Really, really close. Poro and Marimon and Semenov and Shevchenko changing all the time. Now the Russians dropping to fourth place, actually, which surprises me overall, that is.
And this is just how hard she is working as the crew member.
Pushing down that centerboard.
Carolina Werner.
You got to be flexible to do that and strong.
Legs, arms, and above all, core muscles, vital in this performance.
And you got to keep the balance. Standing on one leg, pushing down that centerboard with a boat that moves like that, I think that is very, very impressive.
That is. And today, of course, it's just the one race for them, but for the rest of the week in qualifying, they've had 2, 3, sometimes 4 races a day, and they must reach shore absolutely exhausted. Although with Carolina, 20 years old, there's no evidence of that. We interviewed her after racing most days, and she made a few appearances on the stage to entertain the crowds as well. Always smiling, always very good-natured and passionate about her sport and her performance. But that gap now absolutely massive between the leaders and second place. But can anyone catch Semenov and Shetinkina? Which I think I almost got right that time.
Shetinkina sounds good.
As they stand, they will take silver here at Kieler Woche, with the Italians Porro and Mariman Giovanetti taking the third place overall, even though they are currently sitting in 5th in this race. 5th place is enough for those Italians to claim the 3rd podium place. Well, our leaders are already around the bottom mark and heading upwind again as they begin the final 2 legs of the race. And we're watching them now with these live pictures from our camera boat.
And a super impressive lead by Koloff and Werner. I initially thought it was an error, but it is 188 meters lead.
And it's on days like these that our drivers on the camera boats really need full throttle ahead to keep up with the speed of these boats.
And if Sabatini want to win the 2nd place plus the 2,000 euros prize money, they have to overtake Semenov and Shevchenko. And that is the battle on the podium at the moment.
And they are close enough to be able to do that. But what do they have to do in order to close that gap?
I think, what do they have to do? Well, they need to break away from the fleet at some point or sail faster, but I don't think that's been the pattern at the moment. Semenov had good speed. I can check out the data in a second. The average speed in this race so far is it correlates really well with the actual rank. Koloff, by far the fastest boat, almost 0.7 knots faster than the rest. Semenov having more speed than Sabatini. Oh, they're actually on par in terms of speed, but they would have to tack early at some point.
Well, being on a par with them isn't good enough, because they have to take that 2nd place if they want a podium finish. So what are they looking for? They're looking for puffs on other sides, on the other side of the course?
Yep, especially lifts. If a dark cloud would approach there, that could potentially skew the wind in their favor. That's where they would head off. At the moment, it's a follow the leader scenario. Nobody has broken off onto the right side to risk something. It's the last upwind. Someone better risk something if he wants to go up there. Semenov would surely defend. They're currently in second place, but it's only a hair between them on the overall leaderboard. Just 1 point towards the Italians and the Argentinians. They're now all tied on points in the overall results. But everyone follows the leader.
The pair we haven't really seen much of in this race are the Brazilian Andre Mirski and his wife Kieler. They were complaining that they were about 10 kilos overweight. That should have helped them really in this weather.
In this weather, but not the light winds
and
we
there they
saw
are
before.
in ninth. Yeah, so well back, good ½ kilometre back from the leaders. And they were blaming their position, you know, in the overall championship on the light winds, but they've had strong winds today. And I imagine that your manoeuvring and your movement on board and your tactics have to be so much quicker than they would have been in previous days here.
Absolutely. It's you have to be faster, you have to be stronger, you have to be more accurate, because if you, for example, wouldn't uncleat the main sheet or the jib, you could easily capsize. Yeah, we saw a boat taking off just there, that we saw the lift on the foils. In general, you have to be even more awake, and in a different way. You have to be aware of those big gusts hitting your boat and reacting to that.
Porro and Marimon Giovanetti crossing the fleet there, as the Argentinians in fourth and the other Italians in fifth head off on their particular tack.
Argentinians lying overall in fifth again, but tied on points with fourth place and only 4 points to the podium. At the moment, the Italian pair ahead of the Russians by 3 points. The leads are changing all the time. So the podium is not decided yet, and there's 3 or 4 boats in contention for second and third place, and it's the two Italian boats, the Russian boat and the Argentinian boat.
The champion has already rounded the mark, and he's off on the final leg towards the finish line. But whilst it's wonderful to watch these guys here perform and watch their tactics and their athleticism on board, what we're interested in today is second and third place. Not just for this race, but for the overall leaderboard. And as things stand, second and third overall will go to the 2 Italian crews. So at last, Semenov reaches that top mark.
Half a kilometer lead towards the second place boat. That's unbelievable. And the battle is still on for second and third place.
You do wonder really how Koloff and Werner do it. It's all very well talking about their fitness and their technique, but goodness gracious, they are so far ahead of this fleet. And for the Germans, just before they arrive at the finish line, what do they have to do now? What's the plan for the Olympics for them, for this crew?
Well, there's 2 phases for qualification. First, or really 3. You have to qualify the nation. Your nation has to be amongst the top, I don't know the exact number, I think the top 20 nations to qualify for the Olympics. Then you have to meet the criteria of the national sporting body, which is usually around top 10 nation in the world. And then you have to qualify against your national opponents. I think that's pretty clear with Kohlhoff and Werner that they're undisputed at the moment. But they've got a bit ahead, and at the next regattas it's going to be decided whether they can actually keep up that form and be one of the top teams in the world that would eventually make it into the Olympic squad for Germany.
Because, of course, and someone's gone over. We need to find out who that is and see if that is amongst the leaders of the pack. But our champions are now approaching the line. And Paul Kohlhoff and Carolina Werner of Germany cross the finish line in front yet again and do what they've been doing throughout this regatta, dominate the fleet, win the race, and just confirm themselves as champions. That championship signed, sealed and delivered by the pair yesterday. But who will take second and third place, the other two podium finishes? At the moment, with the Russians in second place, that should seal them third position. And the Italians, Porro, in third in this race, will give them the second place. So the numbers on the left-hand side of the screen, if you reverse 2 and 3, that is how they are on the overall leaderboard.
And now we saw the capsize that we were worried about, and we've seen the wind picking up. I'm seeing gusts above 20 knots now, and it's getting trickier out there.
But still, about 100 odd meters to go as the Russian crosses the line in second place. And significantly, I'm hearing that it was the Italian boat, Sabatini, that capsized. So that ends any chance of a podium for them, of course. They were in the running for it, but it means that the other podium will go to the Italian Porro and Marimon Giovanetti.
And actually that spills disaster on Sabatini and Mamusa, which actually dropped down to 7th place. What a disaster for them.
Great performance from the Argentinians. Martinez and Bosco have now come across that finish line in 4th. Their form improving in their first event together in an Accra 17, and that form improving throughout the week, proving that they will be a force to be reckoned with in the future. Singapore coming in 6th. Justin Liu and Denise Lim will be pleased with that as they come to the NACRA 17 for the first time in competition. Plenty of training together in other cats and in other class of boats, but for the first time in a NACRA 17. The Brazilians will be disappointed. They were fairly down already a couple of days into the regatta, saying that they were overweight, they hadn't quite got their technique right, and they come in 7th, the Mirski pair. And then in 8th place in this race, John Casey of the United States, based in Florida, crosses the line with his crew, Kristen Lane, in 8th place. Sabatini and Mamusa, not sure if they will even finish this race after their capsize, but they are given 10th place for the moment. So we wait for the numbers to be crunched and the overall leaderboard to be prepared. We'll bring you that as soon as we can to confirm the 2nd and 3rd podium places. But as far as I see it, 2nd has gone to the Italian pair of Francesco Porro and Laura Marimon Giovanetti, with 3rd place to the Russians, Maxim Semenov and Alina Shetininka. Conditions still pretty strong and windy out there, and this is how the race started.
Well, we can see that the wind ladder we've been talking about throughout this week is very rectangular to the starting line, not a strong bias on the starting line. Martinez and Bosco started to the left, Kohlhoff in the middle, undisputed champions, so super fast, they don't care where they start really. They got out really well, and nobody started very late. Within 2 seconds of the start gun, they went over the line. And the winner of the start, Kohlhoff and Werner and Martinez and Bosco, they couldn't make it up on the podium, but the start was certainly excellent and promising where their performance is going to pan out in the coming weeks and month, and if we're going to see them at the Olympics.
So we can now confirm that silver went to the Italians as predicted. Francesco Porro and Laura Marimon Giovanetti will be celebrating their second place overall, and bronze goes to the Russian pair of Semenov and Shetinkina. Just out of the podium places, the Argentinians who've hit form in recent days, Martinez and Eugenia Bosco, just 2 points out of the podium places, but a good performance as well from the Singaporeans Liu and Lim.
Strong sailing scene in Singapore, growing and growing. Nice to have this center of sailing in Asia. But let's look at the data a little bit more, and I think we're going to be impressed with the speed on Koloff and Werner, a class of their own, really. 13.34 knots, half a knot more than half a knot more on them. Spectacular performance. The distance covered, let's look at that. No clear correlation here, because you would expect the winners to have less distance, but it was a speed race, and maneuvers not as much in this class as in the other classes. Let's look at the maneuvers. 14 on the leaders, 11 on the second place boat, and 16 on Porro and Marimon Giovanetti.
So really the Italians, despite their number of maneuvers, still doing well in that race.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not only about the maneuvers, and it was very, very difficult conditions, and good performance on the maneuvers is crucial to make it around. I expected actually more than one capsize in this race, but as the wind is picking up and as the data is coming in, it is picking up further. We might see some more capsizing action in the races to come.
Yeah, conditions out there still very grey, very blustery. The forecast for this afternoon, as far as wind, was it going to?
It's going to pick up. It's going to pick up more and more, and with the two classes to come, we're going to see some very challenging racing. We can see the 49ers getting going out there. I think it's the 49ers first, and then the 49er FX.
Yep. So we'll have the men out there in the 49ers in about 10 minutes' time. That is scheduled to kick off, and then the FX about 40 minutes after that. And of course, it's the speed that all the sailors in the 49ers are interested in, and that is what they're going to get at last after some quite light winds here in Kiel. So plenty to look forward to there. It'll also be interesting to hear not just from the winners, but from some of the other crews in the NACRA 17 fleet following their medal race. But remember that you can go to sapsailing.com. The equipment that Marcus has here in front of him, which is pretty impressive. You can access all that data just by sitting at home at your desktop, on your laptop, on your tablet. sapsailing.com is the gateway to all that data. And looking back at that NACRA race, what do you think was the most significant sort of figures that came off? What did we learn?
Well, it was clearly a speed race. We saw that from the data, and that's what I expect for the races to come. That it's more about the speed, and actually now it's about keeping the boat upright, because we see big gusts going through, probably hitting 25 knots, which is sort of the limit where you can sail these boats, and it's going to be spectacular, and we can be grateful for these great conditions today.
Well, conditions here on shore quite chilly. I'm seeing hundreds of sailing fans walking past, all wrapped up, woolly hats and windproof jackets. Nice and warm here in the studio, though. I think we might stay here and just hang on and wait for the first of the two medal races still to come. We're halfway through our medal race program, and the 49ers will be up next. You can see our big white camera balloon just getting into position and preparing for the next start, as the 49ers start to move towards the race course. And what will the sailors be doing at this point? Are they just checking gear? Are they warming up? What happens on board?
They're actually warming up. They've prepared their boat. They've tuned their boat. They're fine-tuning it now, putting the right tensions on, pulling the strings, getting the optimum speed out of the boat. But they make sure that they're fully warmed up and that they get an idea about the race course, where the favorite side could be, where the gusts hit harder, where the line bias is. So they're researching, really. It's like looking into the future. They're trying to look into the future to make the best prediction of what's going to happen next. And I think we have around 15 minutes or 20 minutes to go to the next start.
It's even less than that. I think we've got about 6 or 7, but that's still to be confirmed. I think they're having to rearrange the course slightly, and we'll get a timing on that very shortly. So it's 10 minutes to the start. That's the latest from the committee boat, and very soon we'll be hearing from our NACRA 17 champions as well. So that's something to look forward to. Be interesting to get their take on conditions out there, and also on their future, because there's so much for them to look forward to. 19 and 20 years old, it's still very much the start of their sailing career. They have not just Rio to look forward to, but quite a few Olympic Games to come. And do you remember being that young? Do you remember what it felt like to be in that position?
I certainly remember how exciting it was to try to qualify for the Olympics, and how difficult it was, because you never know if you're going to achieve it or not, and you have to go race by race and get better and better all the time. It is a great challenge, and it's a really good experience for young people to have.
But it's also difficult to be in that position, because it's easy to go, hey, do you know what? I'm good. I've made it. I'm there. And actually, they've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, it's always dangerous to settle down and to think you've achieved it, and you got to stay awake. As I said before, you're only as good as your last regatta.
And consistency is key.
Absolutely. You got to be consistent. That's where you have to build your performance towards, that all your maneuvers are safe. You can't do 5 out of 10 maneuvers well. You have to do 9 or 10 out of 10 maneuvers well. And that is the consistency that counts in the end.
Now, you know, we see a lot of America's Cup sailors and how they prepare. You know, they're in the gym every day. They've got professional coaches with them every day. They've got nutritionists, blah, 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 blah. But at this level, with the Olympics and with, you know, Olympic funding and so on, what is your average 19, 20-year-old doing? Some of these sailors here this week are still at school. How does their training pan out?
Well, it has become really professional. So if you decide you want to go to the Olympics, you got to go full time. The question is when. Is it 2 years before the Games, 3 years before the Games, or maybe even 6 years before the Games? It depends where you come from, but it is a full-time job, certainly before the Olympics. Otherwise, you can't perform on top level.
And of course, unlike America's Cup sailors, who have engineers and technicians working on their boats the whole time, here we've got here they have to rig up their own boat and make the changes themselves and do the maintenance as well. But let's go out on the water now and hear from Paul Kolov, the champion helmsman in the NACRA 17, and Christina Werner, his crew. They're waiting to speak to us. So congratulations to you both. Yes, it was in the bag already yesterday, but still it must be very satisfying to win by such a margin.
Yeah, surely it is. We had a good week, but we didn't stop after yesterday because we just wanted to show that it wasn't by accident that we won by that a big margin, and yeah, we came out here and had a very good medal race and won it in the end.
Okay, so the 49er medal race is still to come, as is the FX, which follows straight on. We're a few minutes away from that. Marcus Bauer, thank you very much for your co-commentary over the last few days and all the data and analysis coming off the website. And Andy Rice will join us in the studio very shortly for that 49er medal race. But for now, we'll say goodbye. Don't go away. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Can a business have a mind, a subconscious, a power to store every experience and call upon it through something called intuition? Can a company have reflexes, a nervous system, the ability to react precisely and correctly, faster than the speed of thought? Can an enterprise have a sixth sense, a knack for predicting the future? Can a business have a spirit? Can a business have a soul? Can a business be alive?
Welcome back to our live coverage of Kieler Woche, the all-important medals race day. We've had two, we still have two classes to go. And about to start, as you can see out on the water, the 49ers, and that is just a few minutes away, around about 4 minutes, and we'll be back out live on the water in a moment. Andy Rice, welcome to the studio. You'll be looking at sapsailing.com and bringing all the data and explaining what that means in terms of the story on the race course. So, the 49ers, it's almost a done deal for the German crew, Justus Schmidt and Max Bohm. But in these conditions and with the margin they have, it could still all change. However, there are only two other boats here that can mathematically catch the leader. It's the second place boat, Heil, and former Olympic champion Woche in third place for Denmark. The others are battling it out amongst themselves with races within the race, but it's those top three that we are interested in today as the clock counts down just under 2 minutes to the start. And very short start lines I've noticed in the previous two races.
Okay, so that means that the race committee are not wanting to make things too easy, and there's generally a formula for how long you should make a start line. It's normally a boat length and a half for each boat on the start line. So we've got 10 boats, should be a 15 boat length line, and that looks pretty much what we've got. And so Let's see which side we see them.
Sort of bunching up in the middle there. Difficult to call whether it's the left or the right that they prefer.
It's a blue Peter flag start, which means that the race officer trusts them to get away cleanly. That's there it comes down actually, which signifies that we have 1 minute to go. This is the breeziest that we've seen at Kieler Woche this year, and for 49ers that makes for exciting sailing and adds some jeopardy because these are very easily capsized. They also pitch pole very easily, which means they can
capsize forwards, and that can end up in injury sometimes. So these sailors have to watch out for that.
And we only saw one capsize in the NACRA 17, which goes some way to show how good those crews were. They put on a really good performance. But what will happen in the medal race for the 49ers?
Well, it's quite a conservative lineup here. We've only got 18 seconds to go and the boats are quite far back, but in the breeze they're going to accelerate quite quickly. We see the Danes Denmark 3 looking like they might be going for a port tack start, which means they're going to let the rest of the fleet go over the top of them first, and the Danes want the right-hand side of the course, it looks like.
Two German boats in the fleet. It's Germany 59 that are the overall leaders. Justus Schmidt and Max Bohm. They need to finish anywhere in the top 7 to claim the title. And right now, they're sitting in 3rd place off the start line. But first, off that start line, it was number 4 of Poland, Dominik Buksak and Gregor Godzik.
It was a very conservative start by the majority of the fleet, but the Poles really went for it, and that gave them lots of space to really be able to put the bow down, pull the sails in and go fast off the line. And they've been rewarded with an early lead in this race for Buksak and Godzik from Poland.
So a clean start for the whole fleet. No need for a recall as the Poles and the Germans and the Belgians and the Italians all jostle for position at the front of the fleet.
And a bit of a loss of control there by the Poles. They let the boat lean over there in a gust, and look how much the bow is leaping up and down through these waves. So even though this course is very close to the shore, and it's the flattest water that you would find anywhere out there on the Kieler Fjord, it's still pretty lumpy out there. And the thing is that 49ers, especially going downwind with the spinnaker, they don't like lumpy wind, they don't like lumpy water, and so that could mean that we see some capsizes even from sailors of this caliber.
Now, also significant is the two boats that can challenge Schmidt and Bohm to the title are nowhere to be seen in the top 5. Eric Heil and Thomas Plösel in Germany 12. That's a boat we need to find and position. And Denmark 3, Jonas Wara with his crew, Anders Thompson, also out of the running at the moment. Well, and that is crucial because looking at that shot, the gap between them is growing already.
Well, they both, Wara and Thompson, Heil and Plösel, both went for the port tack start. They started underneath the fleet. They wanted to go to the right-hand side, and you would think that Heil and Plösel would know these waters better than most, but currently they are back in 9th position, and they are about 115 metres back from the lead. So that decision to go out to the right-hand side and let the fleet go over the top of them at the start, early suggestion is that that hasn't worked out for them, but maybe they're playing a longer game. Maybe things will come back for them on the right-hand side as they get further up the course.
The young Austrian pairing of Ben Bilstein and David Hussel moving up into 2nd place. They've had a fairly mixed regatta. They've put in some good performances and got a couple of podium places as well, but they've also made some schoolboy errors that have upset them, and they've been a little bit harsh on themselves, saying that they really would have expected to have done better here. They're currently 3rd in this race, but out of the running for a podium place.
Well, the boat is bucking all over the place, as you can see there, and this is really going to test the crews. It's only a 4-leg race, so it is a bit of a sprint in sailing terms, but the crews in particular, the guys at the front of these boats, working hard all the way around the racetrack, they're going to be very tired by the end of this race.
And we were watching Buksak and Godzik trying to maintain that lead on the Russian boat. Still about 16 metres.
And these two have got a real jump on the rest of the fleet. Maybe that's a little bit overstating it, but they've got a few boat lengths in hand on the rest of the fleet. So the boats that are gone left seem to be making good running early on, and not a good tack there by the Russian boat at the bottom of our picture. Just let the boat heel to windward a little bit too much, and they've been tacked on by the race leaders. But yeah, there'll be bad air coming off the back of those Polish sails, but mostly when you've got this much breeze, it doesn't matter so much about dirty air from the other boats.
But now up come the Danes, Woche and Thompson, who we were wondering where they were, we were wondering how they were doing, and they're moving up the leaderboard and are now challenging for first place. We'll see if that lasts, but you can see them just under the graphic at the top of the screen there. The Danish flag is now taken the lead, so this shot is accurate then, and it's confirmed by the data on the leaderboard.
So that decision to go right, it didn't look good early on, and Highland Plussel did the same. Well, things have come better for them. Highland Plussel still in about 5th or 6th place, so they didn't execute that port tack start as well as Woche and Thompson, but maybe there is something about the right-hand side of this track further up the course.
And now Chris Taylor and Sam Batten of Britain come into the top 3. They only just squeezed into the medal race by 0.5 of a point. And how are they going to perform now with the top players in this fleet? Haven't seen much of the Italians until now. Umberto Crivelli Visconti and his crew, Gianmarco Togni, now in 2nd place. But this race and these boats, so fast in these conditions, things are changing the whole time, and there is an absolute wealth of data coming off the boats that needs to be analysed and crunched. But at the moment, as things stand, it's Austria, Italy and Britain, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. But Highland Plussel and Woche in it, moving to 4th and 5th.
And so Schmidt and Bohm just sailing a sort of a very middling race, really, but still not under... I don't know, Highland Plussel, if they can get further up, they could start threatening. It's 49.5 points at the moment for Schmidt and Bohm. It's 54 for Highland Plussel, and this double point scoring medal race, if Highland Plussel manage to get up into the lead and Schmidt and Bohm just stay in the middle of this fleet, then there's a chance that Highland Plussel could displace the overall race series leaders, because Schmidt and Bohm have really dominated this series up until now. The thing about the medal races, it does throw in a little bit of uncertainty with this double point scoring system.
And they now come to the first windward mark with the race leaders deploying the spinnaker.
With a twist in it, but it comes out, and the black spinnaker of Bildstein and Hussel sets. Unfortunately for them, they hoist in a bit of a lull. There's not too much breeze. They go for the early jibe. They like the right-hand side, and I think there's something about the right-hand side generally on this TV course that seems to suit the skiffs. There's more breeze that side.
And we're on board the leaders, Justus Schmidt and Max Bohm, working hard, and you can see just how much activity goes on board these boats, and teamwork as they share holding that sheet. He's that red rope controlling the mainsail.
That's actually the kite sheet. Controls the Jenica, the big black sail on the front of Schmidt and Bohm's boat.
I thought I'd just test you there. So good performance from the Italians, who are still sitting in 2nd place and going ever so fast.
What sort of speeds were you seeing in the Nacra downwind? Do you remember?
Well, it wasn't as much as that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think the Nacra would be faster, but these speeds are very impressive.
I suppose they're the lighter boat.
Lighter boat, but not as much power, not as much righting moment. But anyway, flat water, so the 49er likes flat water. It can go fast downwind, and we're seeing speeds touching 20 knots, which is really impressive for these boats. And every manoeuvre in this kind of breeze, especially when it's so gusty and shifty, is really quite a threat in the 49er. It's quite a risky move every jibe that you do in these conditions. And
so here we go, a good view of how things stand with Bilstein and Husserl now opening up that lead at the front, and it is an extraordinary lead given we're only on the second leg, over 100 metres from Heil and Plüssel. And if that remains as it is, as this leaderboard tells us, then Heil and Plüssel have done enough to take silver, but still a long way to race. I think we should probably too early to get too hung up over the podium positions yet. Taylor and Batten, their best race, I'd say, almost so far, their best performance of the regatta, now sitting in second place. The Danes in third. And I'm just waiting to see if that gap is increasing or decreasing, but it's fairly steady. Sorry, Andy.
The battle between Vora and Heil in third and fourth is extremely close at the moment. It's just a matter of a point here or there. So the fight for silver and bronze is very much in the balance. And Schmidt and Boehm, they can't relax too much. They're only about 6 or 7 points ahead of those other two boats. So Schmidt and Boehm can't afford any mistakes. They're lying in 6th place at the moment, which would be good enough. But as Heil and Plüssel and Wara and Thompson move towards the top of this leaderboard in this medal race, there is a chance that they could just steal gold off Schmidt and Boehm.
And I wonder if Schmidt and Boehm are just sitting back. It looked like they were, sitting a little bit back from the rest of the fleet, letting them go away in 6th place. They know that a top 7 finish is enough for victory. And I wonder if they're just trying to keep out of trouble and play things safe as we begin in the third leg of 4. And the fleet travels back upwind with the leaders in the centre of the shot, Austria 29, Bilstein and Husserl.
And Bilstein and Husserl, they went round the left-hand gate mark. I thought the leaders would favour going round the right, because the right generally, certainly further up the track, seems to be the safer place to be. But they have put in a covering tack. They're getting over across the front of their competitors, but they've given away a little bit of distance, so it's not as secure a lead as it was. And Heil and Plüssel, from a very slow start, starting on port tack underneath the fleet, they're really coming back into this race. But Schmidt and Boehm not far behind them, but 3 or 4 places behind Heil and Plüssel, so there's still a lot to play for. The gaps aren't really opening up in this race yet.
And Benjamin Bilstein, the helm on that Austrian boat, the leading boat in this race, had shoulder surgery and was out for 4 months, and is just coming back. And they were saying that because of that, they were quite rusty earlier on in the regatta. But these conditions will certainly be putting pressure on any shoulder that isn't 100% right now.
I would think so, yeah. And it's a not uncommon injury in this kind of boat. I was hearing about a similar injury that occurred to a 49er FX sailor just now down in the boat park. So
and why is that?
Landing badly off a capsize is normally the main reason for it, and either being landed on by your teammate or falling into the mast or some hard object that is less yielding than your shoulder. So it is a dangerous boat when you're still learning the ropes, and even when you know how to sail this boat, it can still come back and bite you.
Eric Heil and Thomas Plüssel on this boat in second place, heading upwind at about halfway up this third leg. So much shipping and so many other boats on Kiel Bay for this huge sailing festival, which we're told is the largest in the world and has been going on for over a century. But of course being hosted here at the Olympic Sailing Centre, built for the 1972 Munich Games. And one day, they hope, will host a future Olympic Games as well. So we're focused on the German pair of Eric Heil and Thomas Plüssel, two of the better known German 49er sailors. Plenty of experience between them, but it's the Austrians that are out in front. The Austrians who can't mathematically make the podium places, but who are in it to prove that they can mix it with the best of them and can challenge for Rio.
Fastest down that previous leg was Warren and Thompson with 17.5 knots, almost half a knot faster than anybody else, but they did sail the greatest distance of anybody else down that run, and maybe that's why it hasn't particularly done them any good in the overall standings, because we haven't seen the Danes really launch up into the front of this fleet yet.
First and second in our shot here, Uberto Crivelli Visconti and Gianmarco Togni of Italy. They're a good 5 years older than the Austrians. And this very much a younger fleet than we saw in the NACRA 17s, although obviously we've got a 19-year-old champion in the NACRAs, but generally the average age of the 49er sailors much younger than the NACRAs or some of the other fleets.
Yeah, that's true. That might change over time. I think it's partly because the NACRA 17 being a new class, it's sort of dragging in experienced multi-hull sailors from different types of multi-hull. It's not seen so much as a sort of a graduation from a youth class kind of boat like the 49er. There's an obvious pathway with the 49er coming from the 29er, which is one of the youth classes that we'll be commentating on later on this week in the second half of Kieler Woche. So most 29er sailors aspire to get into a 49er when they get bigger and when they get older. So the switchover is generally in your late teens from a 29 into a 49er.
And that certainly seems to be the pattern of development for most of these crews, especially the Germans. I don't think I spoke to a single sailor who said that they hadn't started in a 29er. They went from optimists to 29ers and then progressed to these.
And the big leap is from the Optimist to the 29er. The 29er is a fast boat, almost as fast as the 49er, but it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't bite you as hard if you get it wrong. But if you can learn the skills, get the muscle memory correct in your 29er, you're going to be well placed when you get into the bigger beast of the 49er.
It'd be a bit like going from a bicycle with stabilizers to a Tour de France race bike, isn't it?
It is a little bit like that, yeah. I mean, the Optimist, it is very much like a bike with stabilizers, and these boats are the absolute opposite. They're almost like a unicycle.
But this shot shows us the distance between the leaders and where they are on the course, with the Danes, Wara and Thompson, coming in from the left side towards this top windward mark as the Austrians round that mark. Bilstein and Hussel are round. They'll be deploying their spinnaker, and look at the distance between them and second place, Eric Heil and Thomas Plössl.
And Heil and Plössl, they're sailing a good solid race, but they're not doing quite enough well, it's more a matter of what is Schmidt and Boom going to do. If Schmidt and Boom can stay in 6th place at the moment, or 5th place, then that's going to be good enough to give them the gold.
And the Danes losing a lot of time getting into the right direction for going round the mark, and it'll be interesting to see how much time they lost, because they were all set up to sneak into 3rd, but that's been held by the Italian crew. So Denmark, Jonas Wara and Anders Thompson in 4th, with the British coming round in 5th, Chris Taylor and Sam Batten. But that gap still growing.
And the gaps really have opened out now. It was a very, very tight race for the first lap, but now we're seeing the differences show. And the funny thing is that Schmidt and Boom, they're sailing a pretty ordinary kind of race by their high standards, because they've pretty much been inside the top 3 all week. And here they are. They've only got 9 other boats to race against, and they're probably having one of their worst races of the week.
Well, but Schmidt and Boomer have hardly been out of the podium places. They've won 3 races so far. They've very much controlled this fleet.
And if the best that Heil and Plössl could do would be overtake the Austrians. That looks unlikely. If they did, they would pull to within half a point of the lead. So Schmidt and Boom, they're getting a bit of a charge on. They've just overtaken 1 boat, and so at the moment they've still got a bit of a buffer of about 2 or 3 points on Highland Plussel, but they can't hang about. They can't afford for other boats to overtake them. The good thing for them is that going back from 6th to 7th place, there's a gap of about 200 metres. So provided Schmidt and Boom can keep the boat upright and get this boat safely down the final run, that's probably going to be sufficient. But they must be slightly nervous that maybe Kieler Woche could get away from them.
And if it does, and things stay as they are, they will lose that title to their fellow Germans Eric Heil, which rather destroys any form of bragging rights for another 12 months. But these two top German teams train together closely here in Kiel, and they've also now partnered up with the Danish pair of Wara and Thompson. So the top 3 crews in this fleet know each other very, very well. But that, in many ways, increases the competition between them.
And I'm wondering who was at the party last night and who wasn't, because there was a fundraising party last night for Schmidt and Boom, and it went on pretty late. So maybe this is some reason about Schmidt and Boom's.
It did, but as we can see, the Austrians have crossed the line in first place, and the gap between them and Highland Plussel was not as big as we thought, because the Germans have now crossed the line in second place. Now, who is going to get third? Neck and neck, the Danes and the Italians. And actually, that looked like the Danes got across that line in third place. So we're now sitting here trying to do the maths and scrabble around working out who has got the other podium places. Well, but it certainly looks, if things stay as they are, that Schmidt and Boom will seal the championship as the Brits cross the line. Schmidt and Boom are safely home, and I understand they're safely home in 5th place.
5th place for Schmidt and Boom, which is sufficient to give them the gold medal at Kieler Woche, 47.5 points. Highland Plussel, silver medal, 52 points. Wara and Thompson from Denmark, 58 points. So things remained the same colour jerseys that they went out with have stayed on those sailors today. But there were moments in that race where things could have gone the other way. And Schmidt and Boom, I just wonder if they had a bit of a hangover from their fundraising party last night. But they did drag some of their main competitors with them. So maybe everyone was nursing the same kind of hangover or handicap out on the race course today.
I think you do them a disservice. I think they knew what they had to do. They knew they needed a top 7 finish, and they just went round to achieve that. Kept out of trouble, played it safe, and they've done it. And so Justus Schmidt and Max Bohm are the Kieler Woche champions in the 49er class for 2015. Silver to their teammates Eric Heil and Thomas Plussel, and then the 2008 Olympic champion Jonas Wara and Anders Thompson get bronze in 3rd place. Time for these guys to catch their breaths, time for us to try and catch up with them and hear from the winners.
And just look how windy it is further out to sea. That would be unsaleable out there for a 49er, so we're fortunate that it's offshore breeze. And there are the confirmed standings. Schmidt and Boom holding on to the gold medal position, winning Kieler Woche against Highland Plussel, their teammates from Germany, who hold on to silver ahead of Warren Thompson from Denmark. And Bildstein and Hussel, who sailed such a good medal race, are awarded with 4th overall.
And yes, the TV course closer into shore than some of the other courses where other class of boats are racing. And Mino, our weatherman, who we spoke to earlier on this morning, telling us that, sailing would probably be impossible on some of the outer courses. And if you look at the horizon and the white caps, you can see why he said that. So let's just have a look at this race and analyse the start, Andy.
So Warren Thompson, Highland Plussel, they went for a port tack start. They let the rest of the fleet start over the top of them, whereas we saw Bildstein and Hussel and the Italians go for a more traditional starboard tack start, and Bildstein and Hussel were closest to the line of the four that we're looking at here, and the Poles also had a great start out to the left-hand side. Crivelli and Togni, not quite such a good start because they're not as far up the wind ladder, but look how much distance Heil Plussel and Werra Thompson gave away by starting on port. Terrible start really by Highland Plussel, because not only did they start underneath the fleet, they start about 3 or 4 boat lengths behind the Danes. So a terrible start by Highland Plussel, which speaks volumes for how well they sailed the rest of the race. And maybe they were prepared to give away that distance at the start, but they still would have liked to have executed more effectively than they did. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And those two sailors, those two teams, the Danes and the Germans that went right, actually ended up doing pretty well in that race.
And a good victory for the Austrians, who finally hit form. Benjamin Bildstein and David Hussel, who moved up to finish in 4th, some way from the podium places, but making up for some earlier mistakes and errors in their racing.
Okay, so let's take a look at the speed and distance and manoeuvres that these top teams achieved in the medal race. So fastest boat around the track, Warren Thompson from Denmark, almost touching 12 knots average speed. A click faster than the 2 boats that beat them in that race. So Warren Thompson, why didn't they win the race if they were the fastest boat? Let's take a look at distance in a moment and see. And there's your answer. They might have been faster than everybody else, but they sailed a lot further than everybody else. They sailed about 200 meters further than the first and second place boats. Very similar stats off the first two, the Austrians and the Germans. So not much to choose between the Austrians and the Germans, except we did see the Germans start a lot later than the rest of the fleet, which is maybe why they didn't beat the Austrians. Okay, let's take a look at manoeuvres. You don't want to do too many of these in this kind of racing. So basically Warren Thompson did more of everything. More speed, more distance, more manoeuvres, and they got 3rd place. We saw a much tighter game played by the Austrians. Reasonable speed, a short distance, and minimum manoeuvres compared with the other boats. And some of those statistics there show why the Austrians won that medal race from start to finish.
And remember, you can access those statistics by going to sapsailing.com. There, all the details from the trackers on the boats out on the water are available to you wherever you are. And you could be watching pretty much anywhere around the world on the internet or on the Nautical channel on your television screens as well. So welcome along, and hope you're enjoying our medal race coverage from Kiel, where the sun is coming out. Shock horror. There's a bit of blue sky outside our studio, but out on the water, as you could see, the wind's still very strong, and white caps very much to the fore on the horizon. So what's happening right now? Well, they're just sorting out a start line for the 49er FX class, which should get underway in about 20 minutes time. 13:25 local time is the ETA for that start. And lots of shipping in Kiel Bay for this huge sailing festival that's taking place all week. And plenty, you've touched on it already, Andy, plenty of parties, not just for the tourists that have come to Kiel, but for the sailors to either go to or to avoid, depending on how professional they want to be this week. So plenty of temptations for anyone visiting the city, including getting out on the water on spectator boats like that one. Pretty blustery, and probably not the sort of day your average tourist wants to spend on a boat eating and drinking.
No, I should think, unlike those hardy 49er sailors that went out racing despite that hangover, most people are having a bit of a lie-in today in Kiel. It's a bit of a marathon, isn't it? It's 9 or 10 days of and a lot of beer consumed in Kiel during that period. Not so much by the Olympic sailors, but you have to admire their spirit. That if you can drink and keep a 49er upright, then you deserve a medal just for that alone, I think.
And there is an argument for saying in professional sport there's time for maybe to add some sort of handicap or point system for fun and socialising and partying as well as performance.
I agree with that. I mean, I think professional sport has got so professional that there's a danger. Well, I think it's got boring in many cases, and I think in Formula One now, if James Hunt was still racing, he should be rewarded with extra points for staying out late at night and having a bit of a drink, because we're not seeing enough fun being had in professional sport these days, and I think there's a balance to be found there.
The ferries come in and out of Kiel as well, bringing those party goers, and that's one of them. But also bringing, on a serious note, all the boats for the competitors. But many of these guys are in Europe, and they're in Europe for the summer for various competitions, and Europeans coming up shortly as well. Now, that is where we are going to be taking you very shortly. Those are our 49er champions, Schmidt and Bohm. And we'll be going down there to hear what they have to say and get their reaction to their championship title. And they will be it's pretty guaranteed they will be on the front pages of the newspapers, because most of the German medalists have so far made the newspapers. There is great interest here.
And it's an important moment for any German sailor to try and win Kieler Woche, even if there hasn't been world-class competition throughout the 49er fleet. It's a great feather in their cap to be able to beat Heil and Plussel, because Heil and Plussel are the sort of the nominees elect for Rio 2016. It's very likely that we're going to see the reigning European champions selected for Germany. But what we're seeing here with Schmidt and Bohm is saying, come on, guys, you've got to keep up that pace, because if you don't, we are there ready to take your spot for Rio 2016. We're getting good, and we're getting good enough to be considered by the selectors as a possible candidate for Rio 2016.
In the end, they only won it by 4.5 points. Eric Heil, who he was suffering from a stomach bug in the earlier part of the week, and really that performance wasn't kicking in at all. They managed to turn that around, and in the end closed the gap to, Heil got 52 points as opposed to the champions on 47.5. So it was a lot closer in the end than we would have ever predicted 2 or 3 days ago when we started covering these races live.
And that speaks volumes for Heil and Plussel's tenacity. Heil lost something like 6 kilos in body weight because he was so ill, and so that's not ideal when you're already a toned and fit athlete. Where do you lose 6 kilos from? That can't have done him any favours at all. So to come back and come so close to taking the gold is a statement of just how good these guys are.
And the interest in Germany in Kieler Woche and these champions highlighted by the fact that this German interview by our colleagues for live German television has now gone on for quite some while. They're interested in their champions and in promoting them and in hearing what they have to say. And as soon as they've finished, hopefully we'll get a word with them as well. But meanwhile, the women in the FXs will be heading out to the course, because that medal race begins in 15 minutes time or so. We'll bring you that live on this channel as well. And we're very much looking forward to it, because there are lots of possible permutations which we'll go into very shortly. So we are assured by our German colleagues that in a few seconds' time we'll be able to speak to Justus Schmidt, the champion in the 49er class. And really, where they are now, the water conditions there, the chop seems to have flattened out. So Justus, congratulations on your title. In the end, what was your plan for that race? Was it to play it safe, or were you struggling to get to the front of the fleet?
Actually, no, our plan for the race was really to play it safe, and we just want to make sure that we finish in the top 5 of the fleet. And at the end we managed, but Eric and Tommy did a wonderful race. They were match raced by Jonas and Anders, but they recovered pretty well from the cover. They got right after the start, and they had a brilliant race and had very good speed. Actually, we struggled a little bit and felt not too comfortable, but in the end, the distance to the others was enough. we're happy to take the win now.
And how satisfying is it to beat Eric Heil and Thomas Plössl to the title?
Once again?
How satisfying, how good does it feel to have beaten Eric Heil?
Yeah, actually it's a first time for us. Oh no, actually it's the second time for us to beat them, but it's a good feeling to be on top of it. But also we are pretty happy that they are just one place right behind us, and that shows that the work of the training group works pretty well, and we all got a pretty good performance. So it's also a very good success for the whole training group. We are happy to be on the podium, all of us.
And does this give you confidence for your Olympic qualification?
Yeah, sure. Now, confidence is increasing. We show that we also can win the regatta, and yeah, it feels great.
Okay, Justus, congratulations to you and to Thomas. Well done. You are the 49er champions in Kieler Woche for 2015. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So they will now head off back to shore and start their celebrations, and I imagine get some food and drink on board as well, because they will have expended an awful lot of energy, and not just physically but mentally as well. It takes an awful lot of concentration to sail these boats, especially in these conditions. So we are just a few minutes away now from the 49er FX medal race, and we will look at all the permutations, the runners and riders, very shortly when we come back. Hello.
Hello.
Competing with champions, always striving for victories, winners choose SAP. In the world of sports, SAP has fought alongside athletes, coaches, and teams worldwide to help achieve their goals in 2014. SAP HANA has brought sports facts and analysis to more than 50 million fans. More insights and new possibilities with SAP help to prepare for future challenges.
Thanks to SAP, we have the possibility to be very individual with the player, to work fast and smart.
We'll have a completely new digitalized world, which will be state-of-the-art in our club. And this is the goal SAP is working for with us.
SAP is the perfect match for the WTA.
I'm trying to get as much information as possible from the analysis to perform even better with my next ride.
Before we had the SAP Analytics, you were relying on your feeling. And now you are able to compare with objective data.
With these hundreds of players, what SAP has created, the draft tool powered by SAP, is just phenomenal.
It's quite nice for the fans to get to know the person a little bit different than just hitting a golf ball from A to B.
Can a business have a mind, a subconscious, a power to store every experience and call upon it through something called intuition? Can a company have reflexes, a nervous system, the ability to react precisely and correctly, faster than the speed of thought? Can an enterprise have a sixth sense, a knack for predicting the future? Can a business have a spirit? Can a business have a soul? Can a business be alive?
Welcome back to our live coverage of Kieler Woche and the all-important medals race day. And we have one medal race left to bring you from the course today. It's the 49er FX. We've had 3 thrilling races already. The wind nice and strong out there. We'll check out the data on that shortly. But the FX medal race will get underway in about 5 minutes' time. Andy with me again to watch that race. And how are things looking out there? The conditions changed since the last race?
No, about the same. Looking windy out to sea, looking more saleable on the TV course. Flat water, which the girls will be very pleased to see because otherwise we'd be seeing a lot of pitch polling. It looked fairly stable for the 49ers, but the FX is probably not. I mean, we've got quite a range of ability, so I think we will see some capsizing in this race.
So here are the runners and riders. Beckering and Bramover of the Netherlands have pretty much got this in the bag. A top 6 finish will seal the title for the Dutch. Meyer and Stoffers and their German teammates in 3rd and 4th, all in with a good chance though of closing that gap. And remember, it's double points because it's a medal race. So let's see what Annemiek Beckering makes of her chances of sealing the championship. She spoke to Andy earlier on.
Annemiek and Daniel go into the medal race leading the 49er FX, but it's windy today, so things could still happen. Annemiek, what's the plan for today?
Well, the plan for today is just to race like normal. It's a bit shorter course, but the whole week we've been with 9 boats, so it's not that much different. And we think it will be gusty and shifty, so we try to play that and make the most of it, enjoy it.
Daniel, how's your week been?
Good. I've learned a lot. It's different from 49er sailing, but Annemiek knows a lot about the boat. She's one of the best in the world at the moment, I guess. And yeah, it's been fun. It's racing. It's difficult conditions, so I think it's a good week. It's been a good week, and I hope we can succeed at the last race.
Well, it's been great watching you this week, and we wish you the best of luck in the medal race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andy, we should explain at this point, I think, just because Daniel's the only guy in the fleet, and it is an all-female boat. So how does that work?
This is an open event to encourage greater participation, but yes, for the Olympics, it's strictly women only in the 49er FX, but those two are sort of a marriage of convenience for this week. Annemiek's normal crew is finishing off her studies, and in the case of Daniel, his crew, his helmsman, I think, in the 49er was badly injured a couple of months ago. Basically turned his thumb the wrong way round after a bad landing in a 49er pitch pole. And so, they've been off games for a while. So good for those two to get together for Kieler, Woche.
Okay, so we've heard from the leaders, their nearest challengers, and someone's got some trouble there. They've turned the boat over. And I think that might be one of the Swedish crews who've been having a bit of a nightmare all week.
That's Vesta and Netzler, and looks like we just lost one of them just off the side, and maybe swimming round to the bow, looking to swim the boat round. But they are not going to make this race on time. They've only got 1:30 to the start, something like that. And
they were telling me yesterday how frustrated they'd been with making schoolgirl errors on some of the races, but we're hoping that, you know, really they could turn that around despite not having had much training time in the boat. But what they need to turn around is the boat right now.
Absolutely, they do. They've only got 1 minute to turn that boat around, and it's not going to be in time. So the next challenge for the Swedes is, will they actually be able to cross the start line in time before the race officer shuts the line? So only 8 boats on the start line and 49 seconds to go. And you can see it's still very breezy further out to sea, but it's flat water here. 40 seconds to go, and most of the boats going for the committee boat end of the start at the moment.
So it's Netherlands 4 that lead and have to finish in the top 6 if they're going to seal the championship. But other boats to keep an eye out for who are challenging for that title. Germany 777 with Meyer and Stoffers on board as the Swedes in the foreground still try to right their boat. Then the other Germans, Germany 6 of Uzok and Lawrence, and the twin sisters, the Gerger sisters on Germany 810. They are all the closest contenders to the championships. Or will the Dutch hold on? The clock is 0. The FX medal race is underway, and blasting across the line first are the leaders, the Dutch on Netherlands 4.
Fantastic start by them. They were really fast out of the box, but were they too fast? Have they had to go back? It's an individual recall, and the Dutch think that they were the ones that were over. So this makes things interesting.
They got that all wrong, and you can ignore the that graphic in the left corner. That's gone now because they've, as you can see, they've gone round, they've started again, and are now at the back of the fleet and heading out in the opposite direction to the current leaders.
Well, that might be a get out of jail for them, because going to the right-hand side worked okay for Warren Thompson and Highland Plussel in the 49er medal race just now. So all is not lost for Beckering and Bramova.
And here is a replay of the Dutch crossing the line early, and well, without the clock it's difficult to say, but clearly they were. And how would that have been signalled to them?
There's a flag, you can just see right of picture, that white flag with a blue cross says somebody was over. The thing is, you don't know if it's you or not for sure. You have to make a judgment as to whether you think it was you. But they were the boat most poked out across the start line. They will have known that, and they will be thinking, why on earth did we do that? We really didn't have to push things that hard. All we got to do is get an average finish, and we're going to get the gold medal. Now they've given themselves an uphill battle, and I think they'll still do it. But it does make things interesting, and it gives the Germans hope that maybe Germany will get a 49er FX gold to add to the 49er gold that we saw just now.
The Gerger sisters in the lead right now from Uzok and Lawrence. So it's Germany 1 and 2, and then come the Swedes, the Swedish boat that didn't capsize. And we'll give you an update on whether those girls managed to upright the boat and get underway. At the moment, on the mini-map at the bottom right corner, we've only got 8 of the 9 boats showing, so we'll have to get an update on them. But right now, we're watching the leaders, second place the second place boat with the Gerger sisters, and Netherlands 4-4-4 in fourth place. But look at the leaders, Beckering and Bramover. They're already back up and into the top 5.
And only 54 metres back, and that number is coming down all the time, now up into fourth place, and 48 metres. They have got the hammer down, and maybe that right-hand side is paying for them, plus which they're probably one of the heavier crews out there, and very well sailed they are as well. And actually right now you wouldn't bet against them even leading at the win, but mark the way that they're going. They have got an absolute charge on. So after that schoolboy, schoolgirl error by the mixed crew off the start line, they are making amends for that extremely quickly.
Randy Forser and Natalie Legegren of Sweden now moving up into the podium places for this race anyway, into third place, a 50-metre drop between them. Forser's actually Norwegian, but has spent so long in Sweden that she's been adopted by the Swedish national team and now represents them, and has had time out of the FX in recent months to finish her studies and start a new job in Gothenburg. So for them, any good performance is a plus as they try and refine their form of old.
Now, one thing that is a little bit of a mystery to me is what has happened to Meyer and Stoffers. They were second going into this race, and they are about 400 metres back, along with the Swedes who we saw capsized up to this medal race.
Now we can actually see Myers and Stoffers at the far side of the course, just the other side of Germany 6. And they're moving back in towards the boats that we are watching.
And you can just right of picture, just going out of our vision there, behind Germany 810, we saw Germany 777. That's Meyer and Stoffers, leading Germans going into this race in second overall. Now the big problem for them, the girls spoke to me before the start, and they said they're not really chasing the gold. They just want to make sure that they wrap up silver. Well, they've got a funny way of going about it right now, because it's not going at all well for Meyer and Stoffers, and they are in danger of slipping out of the medals altogether. As things stand, Beckering and Bramovar in third in this race have still got quite a nice points buffer, but it's the Gerger sisters leading this race at the moment, the silver medal position. And Lawrence only a couple of points back from them, so really the fight for silver is between the first and second place boats in this race right now, or between the top two Germans, the Gerger sisters and Herzog and Lawrence. And Meyer and Stoffers, well, they've got a lot of sailing to do if they want to get back up and get any kind of colour of medal at all in this race.
9 boats in this race, rather than the usual 10 you'd expect. And it's the Gerger sisters that are currently in control of this. It's pretty close, isn't it, for that second and third place, and then a long way back to the Dutch team in fourth.
Herzog and Lawrence had a shaky start to this regatta. They're using a borrowed boat. It wasn't quite working for them properly. The other handicap that they have is that they're one of the lighter crews. It's strong winds, and they do suffer a little bit for speed in strong winds. So they're sailing really well to sit in third place, but they really need to get in front of those Gerger sisters if they're going to take silver away from them.
Who that was, but we'll check the analytics and let you know as the leading boat, the Gerger sisters, come into the top windward mark, to the windward mark, the first turn on this race. Significant lead from the Dutch, Beckering and Bramover.
This is
round they go.
One of the most dangerous moments of any 49er or 49er FX race is getting that spinnaker up. It can catch the water as it goes up, but it looks like it's a clean hoist for the Gerger sisters, who get that black SAP Jenica up and running, but no, it's flogging. Not quite sure why. But anyway, they're up and running. And
I think the Dutch did a better job of that. And
I would agree with that.
Closed the gap.
And we've seen an early jibe by most of the 49ers in the previous medal race. There seems to be more breeze on the right-hand side of this course. So you would expect to see some jibes, but maybe it's more about minimising the manoeuvres. Every jibe is a risk in a 49er. and the standard of boat handling in the FX won't be quite as good as we saw in the men's 49er, partly because the girls haven't been sailing these boats for as long as the boys. So maybe they're just trying to minimise the risk and keep the jibes down to a minimum.
And we've given them all pink spinnakers on this graphic. So the Gerger sisters leading the Dutch, Beckering and Bramover, 75-metre gap between them now. And then it's a long way back to Jerzok and Lawrence.
But you know what? Meyer and Stoffers are on a charge. They love the breeze. I don't know what went wrong, but they are back up into 4th place, and that puts them back up in medal contention. And as things stand, they now sit in the bronze medal position. So they've done enough to get back into bronze, potentially displacing Jerzok and Lawrence from bronze. And they're only 1 point behind the Gerger sisters. Now, the Gerger sisters can't do anything more than win this race, and they must be worried as to whether they can keep those second-place Dutch behind them. But if Meyer and Stoffers can make up just one more place, then they will move back into silver medal position. And that didn't look very likely a few minutes ago.
It's good to see an Indian crew in this medal race. Gautam and Chesien in 9th place, and 9th place on the leaderboard. They're actually 7th, so a good run from them this week, and they are generally pretty quick in light winds, but prefer to do manoeuvres in stronger winds, which is exactly what they've got now. So I think they'd have hoped to have done better than coming in last today, but we're not even halfway through the race, so we'll see how they get on. Their dream is to put India and Chennai, where they're from, very much on the sailing map, and if they continue with that form and continue to make the medal races at these international regattas, then that is a dream they will achieve. So Beckering and Bramover, overall leaders, are now leading in this race as we come up to the halfway stage of the 49er FX medal race.
Well, that is going to be good news for Leonie Meyer and Eleanor Stoffers in 4th place, because they now move into the silver medal position. Beckering and Bramover displacing Gerger from the lead means the Gerger sisters have slipped to silver, just 1 point behind. So the Beckering and Bramover, they're probably going to win this race. The gold is gone. But for silver and bronze, there's a 3-way fight, and there's nothing in it. Meyer and Stoffers on 33 points. Gerger sisters on 34 points. Jerzok and Lawrence on 35 points.
And that's Myers and Stoffers who've gone in, so they are now out of the medal race.
Well, it's a little bit early to say that. They're not out of the medal race. They got a lot of work to do, but what can they pull back from this? I mean...
Well, there's an optimist if ever you heard one.
Well, who else is going to capsize? That's the other question.
That's a good point. That's a good point, yeah. And we've had 3 capsizes now in this race. One of them just before that pre-start, and it was the Swedish boat. They did turn it round and managed to get started and are up and running at the back of the fleet.
Well, Jerzok and Lawrence, one of the lighter crews, safely around the leeward gate, and going upwind, you breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief on these boats, because the chance of capsize is a good deal less going upwind than it is downwind. So that's something to tick off there for Jerzok and Lawrence. And if they've had a chance to look around, they will be aware that Meyer and Stoffers capsized, and that gives Jerzok and Lawrence the hope that they will be back in the medals again.
I'm probably going to have to eat my hat, because actually Meyer and Stoffers, despite their dip in the water, haven't lost their position according to this. They're yet to be caught. Is that right? Can you just double check that on the analytics?
Well, I mean, things are going a little bit crazy at the moment. It's hard to tell in terms of distance, but it looks like the way things are, and this is very much a guess, I think there are only 3 boats that have stayed upright in this race so far, and they're the top 3 in this race, because you have to go almost a kilometre back to find the boat in 4th place. 800 or 900 metres back to get to Meyer and Stoffers. So does that mean the rest of the fleet has capsized? Well, that's my guess. And that tells us that these medals are still very much up for grabs. The only boat that I think we can confidently say is going to get round this track without capsizing is Beckering and Bramover. I think it's that windy and that wavy out there that any of these boats, possibly with the exception of the Dutch, are capable of capsizing.
And we're looking at the 3rd placed boat, Jerzok and Lawrence of Germany, heading upwind on this 3rd leg of 4 on the FX medal race. Gerger and Beckering a little bit further ahead of them out of shot, but you can follow exactly where everybody is on that mini-map on the bottom right corner of the screen.
So the scenario now points-wise is, and there's nothing in it, bearing in mind this is a double points race, Gerger sisters on 34, Herzog Lawrence on 35, Meyer and Stoffers, they may be capsized, but they're still on 35 points. And in fact, Herzog and Lawrence, they may well be threatening the Gerger sisters for second place. We'll have to see on that. But if they do, then if they displace the Gerger sisters, then Meyer and Stoffers may still get a medal out of this, even though they've capsized in this race. So there's still many permutations left. And in amongst those Germans that we talk about so much are the Zelenska sisters in 4th place. We haven't had much to say about them, but they could be pivotal in deciding where these medals come from.
But that was a good shot that we saw. The bows of the two leading boats, the Dutch and the Germans, looking pretty close and neck, but actually from the graphic and the data we're getting, that is a more representative picture of the distance between them and the course that they're sailing.
Things could still happen down this final run. We saw what happened down, well, we didn't see, but we've seen the results of what happened down that final run. Even if we didn't capture it on film, there must be capsizes aplenty out there. And getting down this final run could be really tricky for any of these teams out there. And just look at the gaps back to the boats at the back, 2 kilometres behind. 2,000 metres, and that is some measure of the distance, the difference in competence between some of these teams.
So here we are with Herzog and Lawrence, who started the day in 3rd place and are currently in 3rd place in this race. The Gerger sisters and the Dutch boat, 1st and 2nd.
And let's not forget that the Gerger sisters hadn't done much sailing. They'd done about half an hour's sailing for the previous 6 weeks before this regatta. And so to be this competent, to sail the boat this strongly and confidently around a windy racecourse speaks volumes for those sisters.
And they had an injury on board as well.
Yeah, the reason why they were sat out of sailing and training for so long was they had a capsize, and one sister landed on the other, and the arm of the sister that got landed on. I'm trying to think which one it was. I think Euler landed on Lotte's arm, but whichever way round it was.
They are twins as well, so it doesn't make it easy, does it?
No, it doesn't. A bit like Ant and Dec in the UK. You have to ask them to stand the same way round each time.
Although they're not twins.
True.
So let's stick with the race. Leg 3 of 4. We're coming up to the windward mark, the final turn before they head down towards the finish line with Beckering and Bramova, the only guy in the race, out in front and by quite some margin. And then come the Gerger sisters, followed by the other German crew who, and really the Germans have dominated this fleet, the middle of this fleet, for much of the week. A good position for the Poles, the Zielinskas, because they've struggled. They just about made the medal race and were quite far behind on points from the 8th boat. So yeah, they'll be pleased with a 4th place right now as the leaders turn and prepare to head down on the final leg of this medal race.
And a tricky moment for any team, no matter how good they are, but gone for a jibe set, that is a very confident manoeuvre in these winds. I mean, that's almost showing off. That is an incredible manoeuvre. They made it look so easy, and they've got away with it. But to do that, that doubles the jeopardy, doubles the potential for capsize.
So not just fast, but confident as well on board that Dutch boat, and why not? All they have to do now, and this is easier said than done in these conditions, is keep it upright and get across that finish line. They have to be in the top 6. They're currently leading, and that will seal them the championship and take it away from the Germans, who are chasing in 2nd, in 3rd and in 4th place.
Well, get a load of this, because Meyer and Stoffers, those capsized queens, they're in 4th place, but the way that I have it on the points, they could still get silver as things stand. So even though they are a country mile behind their competitors, their fellow German FX team members, Meyer and Stoffers could still get silver. The Gerger sisters may have to settle for bronze, and Herzog and Lawrence have sailed really cleanly around this course. They haven't capsized, certainly not yet, but they may end up with nothing.
You won't let me forget that, will you? The fact that Mars and Stoffers managed to right the boat, as you predicted. And,
I had
still
forgotten
made
that, but I'm glad you've pointed it out, because it's never over until the fat lady sings in 49er FX racing when the breeze is blowing this hard. And a fat lady is what you need on a boat like on a day like today, but you've still got to be able to get under the boom.
And what a distance now between the boats at the front of the fleet. Almost dividing up that final leg into 3. Beckering at the front with Herzog in 3rd, split by the Gerger sisters. And Myers and Stoffers still making their way up to the windward mark. Almost a kilometre and a half behind.
I'm just looking at the average speeds down this final run. Gerger sisters are actually the fastest at the moment, about 9.49 knots compared with Beckering and Abramovet's 9. Team out there, and they nearly fell in. And that was a good save there by Daniel Abramovet.
But they've done enough, and it was just in front of the finish line, which they've just managed to cross and claim the championship and notch up their 7th victory of the regatta to be crowned champions of Kieler Woche 2015 in the 49er FX. But my goodness, it almost went dreadfully wrong for them, just a few metres from the line. And you wonder really if the Gerger sisters, 150 metres back, would have probably nicked that and taken that victory.
Oh, for sure, 150 metres, that wouldn't have been enough time to get the boat upright. And that was so close to going. Best sailors out there. So can they go through their final jibe? Will the other sailors be able to get through these final jibes and manoeuvres to the finish?
Yet the German twins, Euler and Lotte, have crossed the line in 2nd place, which I think unofficially gives them the 3rd podium spot in the championship overall. But as we've seen, anything can still happen. So who's going to come in 3rd? It's Germany 6. Herzog and Lawrence claimed 3rd place in this race, but now it's all down to Meyer and Stoffers. They are well back. In fact, they may have just begun this final leg, and you can see as the camera pans round looking for them just how...
Well, who would have thought? Out there all on their own, but they've still got to get through those manoeuvres. And, well, they've got almost half a kilometre back to the next boat, which is the Dutch team of Janmaat and Haystack. So even if you capsize, there's a chance that with 500 metres gap, you could still capsize and still get the boat upright and still finish 4th across the line. But there's no easy way of getting through these manoeuvres. In other boats, you can drop the spinnaker, you can do a chicken jibe, you can tack the boat round instead of jibing it. All of those options, none of them are good ones. It's really, really difficult to get these boats safely downwind.
But an extraordinary regatta performance by the Dutch, who've sealed the championship, won this race. 7 victories overall out of the 12 races, and never once out of the podium places, except for the final race yesterday when they were disqualified.
on-course side, which meant that they started too early, which is exactly what we saw them do today. It didn't matter much in the end, but well, you have to admire the fact that they were taking this regatta very seriously. They knew the competition wasn't up to the same standard as their own high standards, so they were using it for practice. They were using it still to push the starts. We saw them do that jibe set. We've seen how much jeopardy there is on this race course, and they still went for the hardest, toughest manoeuvre on the final windward mark turn, and they didn't have to do that with the gap that they had. So they've been pushing themselves, getting every bit of practice they can as they race to victory at Kieler Woche.
Myron Stoffers then approaching the finish line in 4th place, but 2nd place overall. They just have to keep it safe. Just have to conclude those final metres of the race, which, as we saw with the Dutch, is not as easy as it sounds, because they almost lost it on the line. But the Germans play it safe, cross the line in 4th place, and that, unprovisionally, will give them the silver medal position here at Kieler Woche 2015.
And I wonder if they even know that. I mean, they may not even know how close they were to losing a medal, or they might even think they haven't won a medal. I mean, it depends how much they've done their sums for this one.
So we're waiting for the 5th placed finish. The 5th place team, that's a replay of Myron Stoffers crossing the line. And we wait for the 5th place boat, which is the Dutch boat, crewed by Charlotte Heistek and helmed by Cecile Janmaat, who are not part of the Dutch Federation. They're hoping to make it into the talent team. They're hoping that performances here and elsewhere through the summer season will prove to the Federation that they're worth taking on and financing as part of the talent team. And they're certainly doing it all right just by surviving in this race. But generally, they've had a pretty good regatta, have Netherlands 4-4-4.
But it looks like they're playing it pretty safe with their pink Jenica, oversheeting it, not wanting to let the boat rip and go to terminal velocity, because if you go too fast in these boats, they can fall head over heels and do a pitch pole, and that's when injuries can occur.
Well, they've got nothing to gain and everything to lose by getting this wrong.
Got through that jibe. Little bit tentative, but they've done it, and that's what you need to do. I mean, they've got no one else close to them. Actually, to be fair, the Zielinska sisters are not too far behind.
What's your data telling you there, distance-wise?
About 150 metres back to the Zielinskas.
But they're safe. They've crossed the finish line in 5th place, the Dutch, and they will be satisfied with that performance.
And so the Dutch that we saw, their average speed down that last run was 14.34 knots. Just to give you a measure of how much faster you can go, the fastest boat down that last run was actually Myron Stoffers in 4th place. They were 16.82 knots on average, and they were the fastest boat downwind by quite some margin.
And sorry.
No, I mean they were. I mean, even though they were way back in 4th place, almost a kilometre back, they were still driving the boat pretty hard down that last run.
And I don't know where these two are going, because we want an interview with them. They're our winners, and they're heading the wrong way. And we've got another capsize, and I think it's the same Swedish pair that we saw go in earlier. They're going to be absolutely shattered by the end of this race. They'll be just praying to cross the line and finish it.
Well, it may well be that the finish line is closed by the time they get down there, if they do make it down there, because they are now 2,200 metres back from the finish line. So they've still got a lot of sailing left to do. Assuming that's Wester and Netzler from Sweden.
Their aim is the 2020 Olympic Games, and they've been very disappointed by their performance so far. This is what happened. Talk us through it.
Okay, so it's a Polish boat, and they go for the bear away, and if you don't get that, you're now thinking about your own survival. Can you avoid falling into the sails? Can you avoid falling into the mast, which fortunately they've managed to do? And they just didn't have the boat heeled over enough on top of them. They let the boat lean away from them, and if the horse can sense that you're nervous, the horse will throw you off, and that's the problem with the 49er. The other problem was that it was a port tack bear away. The racing all the time, you're bearing away on starboard, and even the very best sailors sometimes don't practice the other bear aways, the other manoeuvres that you don't normally get to do in a race.
And just to confirm, that was Madeline and Nadia Zielinska of Poland. So we call that wrong. It's not the Swedish. It wasn't the Swedish pair at all. It was the Polish pair, and they will not be finishing this race because that's the start line being packed up and everyone's heading off back to shore. So let's confirm how the FX class finished at Kieler Woche this year. The champions are Annemiek Beckering and Daniel Bramover, the mixed crew from Holland, with 18 points. In second place, Meyer and Stoffers, who had a mare of a race but managed to recover to cross the line in fourth place and claim second overall. Just a point behind them, the Gerger sisters. They raced well. They finished second in the medal race to claim the bronze medal position. Then came the Germans and the second of the Dutch fleet. The Swedes in there as well at 6 and 7, and the Poles failing to finish in 8th, and the Indians in 9 as well. So that is the conclusion of the 49er FX with the champions from Holland.
Well, that was a masterclass, apart from the start, of course, which they got badly wrong. And so, if you remember, Beckering and Bramover, they really pushed the start, and they had to go back and restart. And then Meyer and Stoffers, we didn't really see them at the start, so let's just see what happened to them, because they soon dropped to being a long way back from the leading pack. So I just wonder, we're not necessarily going to be able to tell from this, but did they have a capsize or what was it? Anyway, soon we will see Beckering and Bramover turning back because they saw that recall signal. That's them going back, and then they have to go back and port tack start properly underneath the rest of the fleet. Meyer and Stoffers still going okay there. So I just wonder, was it their first tack where they capsized? Was that the problem that saw them way back? Gerger sisters, meanwhile, fantastic start off the pin end, the orange boat on the left, and got a nice little lead in these early stages. Meyer and Stoffers. So Meyer and Stoffers looked back, and they saw that they were also over. So they looked back and saw that the recall flag on the start boat hadn't come down when the Dutch had recrossed the line. So they must have thought, it's us that was over as well, so we've got to go back. So a very expensive restart there for Meyer and Stoffers, and they finished that race fourth. They capsized, but they still did just enough to secure the silver despite all of that. So the gold and silver medalists from this race both had to go back and restart.
Which is an extraordinary statistic and gave us a thrilling final medal race in the FX. In fact, as a class, they've thrilled at Kieler Woche all week. It's been a really impressive performance.
So let's take a look, if we get a chance, at speed distance manoeuvres. So, top 5, let's see what the statistics tell us, and it tells us that Beckering and Bramover were the fastest boat, the only boat to exceed an average of 11 knots, and you see the next two boats absolutely equal on speed, 10.97 knots. Meyer and Stoffers about a knot slower, and probably a part of that is the fact that they spent part of that race capsized. So a clear correlation there between speed and performance, or your finishing position, which is not always the case. Sounds obvious, but it's not always the case that is such a clear correlation. Distance, let's take a look at that. So a really effective short distance sailed by Beckering and Bramover, about 150 metres shorter than the Gerger sisters. Herzog and Lawrence, Meyer and Stoffers sailed further distances, about 300 metres further than the winners. So that accounts for why perhaps they finished some way back from the top two. Manoeuvres, who was the most efficient? Who who had the fewest manoeuvres? Well, actually, it was Meyer and Stoffers. I guess we're not counting capsizes there, but they got 9. But there's not really a lot to choose there. So mostly, from what we can see there, it's the usual combination of speed and distance. Beckering and Bremervale were the fastest. They sailed one of the shortest courses, therefore deserved to have won that race in the way that they did.
But the Dutch victory in this class means that of our 4 races, there were 3 German champions and 1 Dutch champion. So it wasn't quite a German whitewash, but the organisers here in Kiel and the home fans will be very pleased with their showing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really big deal for the Germans to be racing here at Kieler Woche. They know that their sponsors are watching. They know that selectors are watching. And even if we haven't seen the standard of competition that we've seen at previous Kieler Woches because of the way the schedule has fallen in Olympic sailing this year in 2015, we've still seen a really, really high standard of sailing in all 4 medal races that we've seen today.
Let's confirm some of the other results from today. Plenty of medal races have been going on. The winner of the laser was Tobias Schadewald of Germany, who's now won Kieler Woche 3 times in 2 different classes. So a fabulous result for him, and a very pleased Tobias indeed. In second place, former Olympic champion Michael Hansen of Denmark, quite some distance behind, and then came Kubiak, the Pole, in third place. Conditions here with these strong winds giving us plenty of action and entertaining racing, and the laser race was entertaining, but Tobias, as always, dominant.
Well, he took it a while to hit his stride. I thought that he was a little bit slow out of the blocks, but particularly downwind, he just seemed to have an extra gear. So eventually he came good. He won the race, which was the way that he wanted to win Kieler Woche. And he is particularly proud of the fact that he believes that he is the only sailor to have won Kieler Woche in 2 different Olympic classes, twice in the 49er and now in the laser.
Now, the NACRA 17 class was all sealed up yesterday before the medal race even happened. That was won on points by the young pair of Koloff and Werner. So the battle really was for second and third, and in the end that went to the Italians and the Russians, with a really impressive performance by the Argentinians, who moved up the leaderboard into 4th place and just missed out on a podium. Again, exciting racing in the NACRAs as well, in these wonderfully blustery conditions.
Yeah, they are fantastic boats to watch, aren't they? They just look so dynamic, and the crew work on those boats is phenomenal. I mean, the work rates, particularly by Carolina Werner, she's not a big girl, but she puts a lot of effort into sailing that boat.
But I wonder how will they perform in the predicted light winds of Rio?
Yeah, they're possibly the wrong way round in terms of weight distribution, because Paul Koloff, he's a big guy, and he says they do suffer a little bit in light winds. So I think over time you're going to see fewer and fewer male helms. You're going to see more female helms steering the boat, and the guys at the front doing the hard work, and that is probably the way around you want to be weight distribution wise for Rio as well. Anyway, they've got to qualify the country. That's the first thing they've got to do. Germany hasn't got a spot at Rio 2016 yet in the NACRA 17, but on the strength of what we've seen from Koloff and Werner, you'd think they'd be good enough.
In the 49ers, there was another German victory in the overall regatta. That went to Schmidt and Bohm, who weren't as dominant as we thought they would be in the final, in the medal race. But they still put on a good, safe performance, and they admitted as much in our interview after the race, didn't they? They just went out to race a safe race. They achieved that, and they achieved that gold medal position with second place to Eric Heil. So once again, the 3 crews that you'd expect to be at the top were at the top, with Wara the Dane in third.
Yeah, and that will be a nice thing for the 2 Germans in first and second to have done, to have beaten an Olympic champion from 2008, a proven performer at the highest level. And for Heil and Plussel, particularly pleasing that they got better and better throughout the week, maybe as Eric Heil started to recover from that severe weight loss that he had through illness. So they seem to be coming on strong again. And for the 49ers, this was really, and the FXs, this was a final chance to check in before the European Championship in 2 weeks' time, which Marcus Bauer, commentating earlier, and myself will be commentating at that event. So it'll be nice to get into warm climes and to see the 49ers and the FX competing on the world stage there.
Okay, well, I look forward to that. Our coverage is almost at an end. We've brought you the 4 medal races today, and exciting they were too. If you want to analyse the data and get a better idea of what was happening on the water from a numerical and statistical point of view, then go to sapsailing.com and you can have access to all the data that we've been using here in the studio to bring you the details of the coverage. And remember, also online you can catch up with the highlights of Kieler Woche throughout the week on the website as well. But for now, from Andy and from me, it's goodbye. Wherever you're watching, whether it's on the internet or on the Nautical Channel, we'll leave you with the master here and his edit, his highlights of today's racing. Bye-bye.